Oh, me.
Now, John Daly.
See, I thought this was really.
John Daly retired yesterday.
Did he retire? Okay.
I thought it was Keith, but someplace he's
He'll
down.
be pretty independent now
I
then.
guess he
Really?
will. I hope he.
All that, roll that, roll those security.
I've made potato chips and cocoa.
Well, I asked Bruce if there's anything I can
Yeah.
bring. He said no, he didn't reckon he said just come. He's like, he's already eaten, don't he?
You know, it's looked low for a long time.
Well, see, I watched it where I did it at night,
And he wants to be
go
green.
back there again that morning, and I come back and watch it again, to make sure.
No,
I was right to eating, didn't it?
it looks low. No, it
Let me
looks
tell you
low.
a story about your dad.
All the controls track if it's low or not.
We'll hear a lot of stories about it.
Mike, somebody don't put a lot of air in those tires.
Well, you're right, I don't know, Dad always.
Where's your dad? He's sick?
No, that always looks that way. It's not Bob.
Bobby off his cake?
I don't beat my nose.
Gene?
Don't believe so.
Bob, how you doing?
Pretty good, Bruce. How about you?
They want us old ones here today, didn't they? They want us old ones here today so they can find some information out.
Last name.
I don't think we know it more than they do.
Might make us mad, we'll leave.
Make us mad, we'll leave.
You didn't bring Speedy with you?
I should have.
I was up there and.
Bruce?
Like you are.
Mr. Butler, how you doing?
John had his working clothes on. He's outside working. I bet he's not
During
coming.
the,
He wouldn't be interested in this, would he?
big freeze we had,
Yeah, he.
Have you got it working now?
Yesterday was John's last
I want to
day.
get on the record. Brett Butler wants to be buried at Haunted and wants to be cremated. If anything ever happens to you, I want all of you to know that. So that's the record.
So he's
Brett,
out
I've already put it
working.
on the record about your cremation.
Oh, no, don't do that, please don't do that.
A bunch of rusty stuff.
Let me borrow your ink pen if you don't mind.
Right up
I'm gonna give it right back to you. Bob wants
there.
it.
A lot of Joe's stuff.
Did he get me when I was
Yeah.
Absolutely.
He's got one.
Yeah.
I don't know who's sitting here. Larry is.
It's a shame we don't have.
Where the Coca-Cola is.
Yeah, Larry's sitting there. I know that.
Video and audio, Dave?
Yes. Too, when it's.
So can we send this around to different people?
Put it on YouTube and post it.
Oh, well, we'll be all right.
I can mark it private,
All
but
right.
we may be able to monetize it.
Maybe
If
able
you
to.
get, 400,000 or 500,000 views, you start making some money.
Oh, okay.
There you
I don't
go.
think we'll get that many views.
I doubt if we get one.
Probably not.
We'll get one, I'll check.
You doing okay, you and Speedy?
Donnie,
ever talk to
and
anybody
where's
about how
Keith?
to
Keith's not
properly do
here.
this?
He's supposed to be coming.
I did some research.
Oh, I told him to
Tried
too.
find it. The only thing I could
John
find
Daly
was
got his work
one-on-one interviews.
He coming?
And there was a lot of
Yeah, look
stuff
like
out there, so I stole some questions and.
I asked her yesterday, she didn't know anything about it, so
Well, plus
I
somebody cutting it over,
said
cutting
she'd
bruises.
tell him, so.
Maybe Noel did. Noel did cut your
I'll
way.
be around to see.
Supposed to, you cut
One
today?
day, she'll sell it all.
That lady cut mine, it's mowed
This
down.
red big cup.
Mine's cut.
They just
Keep it,
started on
Brett.
yours.
You might, I'm not gonna write anything. You keep it. You may want to
Hey,
take
it looks
notes.
good this year, it's thick and,
You may want to take notes. Keep
them guys are
it.
cutting it.
Oh, no, okay.
I always want to do Holton's job.
John's not coming, Gene?
Well, they know nothing about it, and I told her yesterday, I asked her, after I talked to you yesterday morning.
You know what, I didn't think about it.
Well, he told me, you said, ask me, tell me about it, and so Linda never did say anything about it, and so then I asked Bruce yesterday morning, I called him and talked to him, and I said, what was I supposed to tell her, anything he didn't know? So I told her anyway.
That's fine,
fine, no problem.
I wish they'd come, I didn't even think about
Said,
it.
well, she'd tell John, so anyway, they're not coming, I don't guess, but he said.
I text. Larry, come, get up here, get out here, come here, get started. Let's get started. We gotta be out here at 4 o'clock.
Yeah, the kids come in here.
Is Keith coming?
Huh?
I told, he's supposed to be.
Donnie, where's Donnie? Donnie at? Hey, Dusty, where's
There's some cold refrigerator, Bruce.
Come back from the show.
Coming back from the show, okay.
What?
I need to
I
give you
know I was
one of
gonna be
these.
the only woman here, so we didn't have very many girls, so I brought them, these young nieces.
Brenda says since they're about 8 cousins that she thinks that she can have her marriage annulled because
Hey, Jimmy, you want water?
You want water?
Gene, you want a water?
No, thank you.
I do.
Yeah, bring me one if you don't care.
Yeah, you might as well, Dustin, bring them out, son.
I think she comes from John, you come from Elizabeth. But that's in Will Book 1 at the courthouse, page 79. It's one of the first wills ever recorded.
Thank you.
I got Elizabeth Butler.
Here comes Keith, all right,
Thank you.
good. I didn't think he'd show up. I told him to.
He
I've
has a
been
son
feeding
named
him.
Pleasant. If I'd known that, I would name one of my kids Pleasant.
Come on,
Yeah.
you get it open?
I'm
Open
not very
that.
strong anymore, I'm old.
Well, I'm old too, but I'm not strong either.
I've got a thing at home, they get you wet, a little bit.
I'm all right.
I know Keith will want some water.
Boy, your cake's good.
Pardon me?
Your cake is good.
Dale done got that, he said he got IGA.
That's good.
They all surprised me yesterday. I knew that Dale and Kevin was gonna be there, and then Don and Connie come in. I thought, well, then Larry Nancy showed up. I thought, what's going on? I didn't know I had no idea this coming. We had to cook hamburger and hot dogs.
Oh, got an
1834.
You want a cup of coffee?
Huh?
Is Mark.
Whose will is that?
Valentine the Press. Here he is.
What about some cake?
They were,
didn't you tell me break was gonna be?
they were just wondering when you were gonna get here.
Coffee will help.
Need you a piece of cake?
Not right now.
Here comes
They
Don.
wanted to wait till you got here to start.
You sure? I didn't think you this morning. did I?
I know you meant that. That's all right. I figured you was busy.
You know, one thing we have in
Donnie's coming
common,
in
we've
this-
got white hair.
Larry's coat, sir, but just sit down there.
That's Larry's coat?
You don't matter, sit anywhere you want to, it's just what don't matter.
Of course, Bob's not gonna need to take pictures. Is that Larry?
That's Larry's.
Remember call John Daly again? Never Sit over at the Coca-Cola office corner chair. Get out here.
Tell him that it's.
I can get out of school.
Yeah, just tell him, come on.
Yeah, plenty of room to push both ways.
Exactly what it is.
Donnie's coming in now.
Oh, my, yeah.
I guess.
Gene, you better go smoke a
I don't
cigarette.
know what y'all's plan is,
No, you
but
can't.
I'm already come to terms with everybody I know.
Okay.
Like that.
You're all right, you're all right. Everybody,
How many voters? That's a trick question.
I got pictures.
you got pictures?
Yeah, y'all bring them pictures?
I didn't bring them, bring my head down home.
Should have brought those last
Oh,
time.
man, that's a good one. I remember that one.
I haven't got nothing but our stuff. You didn't bring no pictures, did you?
Didn't bring anything in.
Here, y'all, that was
They're lucky we didn't come. Like, hi, Brett.
that was made, I don't know.
Good, you? All I got is ones
When it
that
was
are, but it's
made.
got some of the,
But they got all of them.
everybody's in
It's
them.
all of them.
That's a bunch.
Some of them. Yeah,
Larry might can tell you.
Didn't bring any.
Donnie, you know when that was made?
Military.
been 480, been 70.
I've seen that one there before.
79,
Now, this one,
78?
I'm not sure, we didn't have a copy of that, Mom, or someone did.
You probably did, because the daddies, they took the picture, that was all of them together, like, first time they had, there's coffee and cake,
Coffee and cake.
and cokes and water.
You don't have time.
Aunt Betsy looked good there.
Didn't she?
Yeah, you sit there.
She always, you know, Aunt Missy had always had a smile on her.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
You seen that one? Pictures
Yeah,
all
I
of
think I've seen
them.
them before.
They, yeah, she did. Now, didn't they go to Philadelphia there
I've
for?
run into, Mary Alice Butler Oliver,
Okay,
2 or 3 times here in the past year or two.
no kidding.
It's amazing how much she looks like Aunt Bessie.
Yeah.
Mary,
It's
Estel's.
Estel's daughter.
Estel's,
Estel's daughter.
daughter, yeah,
Yeah.
Estel's daughter, yeah.
Estel's daughter, Estel. Clay,
she
Uncle
look like
Clay's
Aunt
son.
Bessie?
She looks like Aunt Bessie.
Is that right?
Yeah, yeah.
Well, Wendell Leichenberger, who's, Estel's grandson, I guess.
Yeah.
Clay's grandson.
Clay.
Yeah, his mother was Clay's daughter. I used to see him.
Kev, how are you?
He's coming. Good.
That's okay.
He coming?
Yeah,
He coming?
He said he would.
All right, I had prepared an introductory speech for this,
Please.
And here is where I got the idea, about a year ago, of course, when the pandemic occurred, but I don't remember exactly who it was, if it was Daddy, somebody went and talked to Uncle Wade. Was that Larry? Was it
Larry.
you? Went and talked to Uncle Wade? Larry.
He's the one we need here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Spade a spade.
he told you all several things that you all didn't know, right?
Yeah.
And so I was thinking about it, and it just hit me like, if we could get, I don't wanna say old people, but older.
You can say that.
You can say the old one, you can say the old one, you can say the old one, you can say
I don't
the
know
old
what
one.
this said, but Kevin and I are middle-aged now, so I don't know where it puts you all.
We're old.
We're
So-
old,
We're
that's
old.
what it is.
Any way you put it, we're old.
So I tried to do a little research about asking some, finding some questions. Everything I found was one-on-one, so I just really want to get this and have you all tell some stories, because I know some, Kevin knows some, Dustin probably is not, he's probably heard several too, but just some things, because my first question, was there ever a time when all the brothers, like all your dads, and got together for holidays or anything?
Not that I know.
Just
Did
for
they?
funerals.
Not that I know of.
Funerals is the only time,
Just
and then, and this picture,
Yeah,
that,
funeral.
and this picture right here,
Yeah,
And that was just a
might have been
picture.
after a funeral.
That
Well,
may have
that
been
was
after-
before a funeral. Daddy was sick. That's what
Daddy
they
was
all
sick,
doing.
that's when Daddy was
Bob?
sick.
Both
This
of
time.
them were together every Sunday at church, except for Uncle Wade. Or at church. They all came to church.
Well, that's true.
You know, that is true. I had
That
never
is
thought
true,
about
yeah.
that.
Yeah.
And
That's
then
right.
Bessie.
Bob,
And
when
they
Granny
visit.
Butler.
And I asked Dad if he went to church when he was growing up, and he said, not very much. They would occasionally go to a brush harbor.
What's a brush
or
harbor?
Circuit rider, brush
Tent
harbor.
meeting back old time.
Had those, outdoor revival kind of things, they've got the name, but they put bushes on to keep the rain and stuff off of them. But, some preacher said the crops were
That's a
bad, he
new
preached
term
that
for
year.
him. He's never heard it.
And,
Yeah, that, instead of tent meetings, there were brush harbors.
brush harbors.
And everywhere I lived, they used to have a tent meeting.
Yeah.
I did
You
a
Get
tent
up on
meeting.
your culture here.
I do, yeah.
You know,
Well, see, I've
that's
already learned something.
right, that's right.
But Bob wasn't, now Granny Butler was raised Catholic, wasn't she?
Think so.
Really?
She's Spencer, yeah.
But I never knew of her.
She never, I don't
Doing any
ever
type of
remember her going to
religious
church.
I never did know where we're going.
Never, and,
You know, it's,
Was she older than Granddad? Was she a year or something older than
I
Granddad?
think so.
That was a mystery.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't think she told
nobody
her.
knew.
Now, what was she called? I've always heard.
Ma'am.
Ma'am,
Ma'am.
that's
And
all,
what was-
Bob and I were talking about that earlier, that's all.
What was John called?
I called her Papa.
Papa
Jones.
Jones.
Jones,
Papa-
I mean, yeah.
Jones, yeah.
Jones was called.
I don't know what, I was talking to Bob earlier
Dad
about
now,
what they call it,
said
Dad is what
Dad.
they
They
call
called
it.
him Dad,
Dad,
Dad.
yeah.
Now, Bob, you're one of the few grandchildren that actually stayed out
I
there.
stayed with them
You
several times.
spent the
yeah.
night with them?
Yeah, yeah.
Did any of the rest of the grandkids there spend the night? Did you,
Me and
Gene?
you and
I don't think it
John
ruined
never
me,
did.
but.
I never did.
I never did even stay afternoon or anything.
No.
Only time I was there was we'd go out there, well, it's just me and, I was the only one, till you all come along, you and John. We'd go out there at night sometime, I can
Yeah.
remember, and Grandpa would be sitting in that chair. Did you buy that chair at that sale out there?
think I
They
ended up
had
with it. I've
They
had it redone.
A little rocking
Little
chair, I
rocking
can remember
chair.
him sitting there.
So when did they go? When did Bessie and what was Jack?
Jack,
When did
Jack.
they go to Illinois? They
Jack.
said it last night, but
'During the Depression,
39, wasn't it?
you know, yeah.
It was
somewhere
right
along
after,
there,
in the
38,
30s.
39.
Didn't Uncle Pete move them out there?
Uh-huh, me and Mom went
Yeah.
with
Y'all
I
went
don't
with,
know
yeah, I thought you did. I
So
thought
When
Uncle
did
Pete would
everybody
have.
ride? Did they?
You were there, you went with them.
Uh-huh.
They didn't have to ride the truck.
No,
That was a long
Best car in the
trip.
world.
Didn't have a lot of stuff to take with them. Yeah.
didn't have to.
Now, here's a good source. Gene went with them when they
Gene,
moved
how
there.
long,
Yeah,
how
yeah.
long, did it take, you think?
To get there.
How long did it take? Was it a day or two?
Well, I was just a kid.
Surely.
You know.
You didn't pay attention, you didn't pay attention to that, did you, John?
Sure, you got a day.
Took a long time. See, they lived at Maceo.
There you
That's
go.
where they
I
moved
was
from
right.
Maceo out there.
Maceo.
I
I know they
used-
lived down there.
Uh-huh.
I used to know where the house was, when you going to Mesa, it's on the
He
right
worked
before you
on a
got in,
farm
yeah.
down there,
That's right.
didn't
I
he?
remember, Daddy showed me the house, I
Yeah,
guess,
little
years ago.
house.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
Well, tell me, the Pud place, John Scott, or you get John
Yeah,
Scott?
John
John Scott.
Was that Uncle Jack's home place?
I think so.
I
Uh-huh, yeah.
thought I'd heard that
Yeah.
before.
His
Who was
name,
Pud?
His
Well,
dad,
that's.
Bishop, different.
Bill Bishop's daddy. Bill Bishop's
That's
daddy.
what I knew.
What did Keith say?
I never knew his real name.
It's Elliot.
Bill Bishop, that's who it is.
Elliot's his real
Everybody called
name.
him Pud, I never knew his real
Elliot.
name.
He was, he couldn't read and write. Talk about Larks, Pud couldn't read and write. Signed the X, he signed his name, I think.
X, yeah.
Who
Amos,
is-
Amos.
Pud,
Oh.
Dad makes church that P-U-D-D. Some people call it P-U-D, I don't know how he's spelled
I think the judges sitting over here, look at him, so like the judges, like they're gonna hold up numbers here in a minute.
They're off camera, they don't have a part.
They don't have a
This,
clue.
be quiet.
and that guy, that Uncle Jack's daddy's name was Lloyd, wasn't it, on the
I
farm?
think so,
And her name was Ethel.
yeah.
And Nora Ethel was named after Grandma Butler and her
The oldest
grandma, her other grandma.
Nora
Butler.
Ethel,
I
she's
never
still
knew that.
living.
Yeah. Yeah,
One
no,
of-
it's-
one
We
of the-
think she's in a nursing home.
yeah, she is.
Jack married Bessie Butler, and his brother Rod married Thelma Butler.
I didn't
Who
know
was
that.
Thelma Butler?
Thelma was Lonnie Butler's granddad Clint's brother's daughter. Thelma.
It's too complicated for me. I can't remember all
Too
this.
far back.
Must've been Dyer Butler.
They were at Hardin County. Hardin
Would you
County.
mind
Yeah,
letting
Uncle
Brad
Jack was Hardin County. I always
go
called him
back
Hardin County
generations?
Butler. They weren't,
He can do
but
that
they were
in memory.
close to
Go
constant
back
time
as far as he
where the
can.
Hardin County line is, wasn't involved.
I think that'd be interesting.
Yeah, I'd like to
Ralph
hear
McCamish,
All right.
his mother and all that, she was a butler.
Mm-hmm.
And, they're in Hardin County.
And we always called
Hardin
Uncle
County
Jack.
lawyer.
So, all right, but we got a request from the floor, we'll honor
Okay.
the honor, your honor.
We'll be back.
So Brett, you're going to,
My grandmother, the reason Dad was the way he was his parents were second cousins on the Butler side. And my grandmother was an Aubrey, but she was raised by her grandfather, Tom Butler. Tom Butler and Ned, which is, all of us come from Ned of All, were brothers.
Ned, a what?
Ned of All, in other words, he was over everybody.
There were
But-
several Neds. so
Break that
that's-
down, Brett, generation,
I'm
generation.
going to.
Let's start, who bought the farm to start out with?
But wait a minute, let me go all the way back. Let me go all the way back. My grandmother got stories from her grandfather, and her grandfather was the first butler to come over here, who was Edward Butler. Edward Butler, and I've given you all, not all of you, but some of you, in Will Book 1, page 79, is Valentine Ventress's will. And Valentine had Elizabeth. He had like 10 kids, but Elizabeth Butler married William Butler, and we all come from those two. So that's why I gave you the wills. I have not found, nor has Bruce found, Edward Butler's will. Bruce thinks they got a land grant, and Bruce and I have argued. I call it Calamese Creek, he calls it Mook, but they all settled in that area. He thinks they got land grants. But my grandmother said that the Butlers lived in Prince Edward County, Virginia, and then after the war, they came to the southern part of Breckinridge County. And Edward was the first butler, and his son, William. And the Butlers back then, they would name their first child after their father, and they would name their second child after themselves. In our instance, Ned of All, Edward, named his first son William. Uncle Bill is, you remember Uncle Bill?
Yeah, I remember Uncle Bill.
And Wade remembered him because I talked to Wade about it. His second son was Ned Jr., which I came from, and his third son was John, where y'all all come from. But, and Shirley Powell went, tracked it down. Valentine and Edward, Valentine was in the Continental Army, and he got a pension. So if anybody has a child that they want to be in the Sons or Daughters of the American Revolution, you've got that to go back to. So Edward comes over here, has William. William then has Edward. Then Edward has Bill, John, and Ned. And the other thing is, Bill was born first and died last. Ned Jr. was born second, died second. And John, your great-great-grandfather, was born last and died first, which I always thought was odd. But then Jones, Dad said that Jones left Calamese Creek, and 5 years later, Clint and Levi left Calamese Creek the same day. Bruce thinks if they hadn't come to Harnan, they'd all starved to death. But anyway.
So the Pyles got a land grant on 259, the Wilsons got one up on 60, and we got it back in Mook.
Calamese Creek, which is,
Calamese.
if you draw a line between Mook, Fairfield, and Centerview, that's basically in that area is where we all come from. That's why they all went to Salem School. And I've seen pictures of my dad and your dad, and I don't remember if Raymond was in it or not, all at Salem School when they're just kids.
Let me add to give some numbers on that. William Butler, I got this off old census records years ago when I was in school. I did this kind of a hobby. William Butler was born April 24, 1785 in Virginia. And he married Elizabeth Ventress, who was born in Albemarbale County, Virginia. And they married in, they married in 1812. He died in 1827, she died in 1844. She was a Ventress. She was Valentine Ventress's
Yeah, that's what the
daughter.
Wilson.
And
Yes.
her mother was Sally Hogg, H-O-G-G. And they were, the Valentine Ventress was born in Virginia. And I've got here that
Explains
we
a lot
think
of
that
stuff.
William Butler's father was Edward Butler. We can't really prove that yet, right?
No, it was.
Okay.
Like I said,
But he was he the one that came to Breckinridge County?
Yeah.
I discovered some stuff we don't know.
Okay.
And my couple other stories for you while I got my grandmother. Of course, the Butlers we didn't own slaves, and one of our great uncles fought for the Union, according to my grandmother. But my grandmother was born 11 years after the Civil War ended, and she told me once that the guerrillas came up the road stealing everything to get their hands on. And the reason you guys are all Republicans, Keith will tell you it's different, but when John Hunt Morgan came through here and crossed the river up here at Brandenburg, he stole all of our stuff. He stole our horses and food and everything. They say he lived off the land. No, he lived off us. And one of our people, Shirley Powell, had the story that he took his horses and went up into the woods and stayed there for 3 days until Morgan's raiders went through. He could always get another wife and more kids, but
Couldn't get more horses.
getting horses might be
Well, your
more
grandmother
difficult.
just thought they were thieves, didn't she?
That's what, yeah, she said they should have just hung them.
Couldn't what?
They were
Should have hung
thieves.
them from the closest tree. she
Yeah.
said. Yeah, and like I said, she died, but it had to have been hard on them when they, lost everything.
Well, you know.
You said he took his horses, who was it?
Well, one of our, it wasn't one of our grandfathers, but it was a brother or something to that, but he took his horses and hid up in the
okay,
woods until they
They
went
said, did they
through.
move from Calamese Creek out
My
here?
brother tried to die.
So Brett, go back to where we connect up. Is it your great-grandfather and our great-grandfather were brothers?
Right, John and Edward Jr. were brothers. But and Bruce and Larry and I have all been, and Dwight have all been up. If you go to where Joe Lester used to live, right up, I think it's called the Horsley Graveyard.
I believe it is.
It's what?
Horsley Graveyard,
On top of the hill there.
690 over there.
Oh.
As they said, Ned of All is buried up there with his wife, Sarah Lucas Butler.
See, you didn't know that.
See,
A lot
yeah.
of good blood.
Yeah.
Ventress and Lee.
When I was going to college, I measured tobacco during the summer.
I know you mentioned ours.
And,
It does.
especially through that area over there. Raymond Scott, where he lived, and they grew up, Raymond them told me that the Bob Lucas farm was where Dad and them kinda grew up. and that's over in that moot.
Wonder where's that farm is?
And I think that Salem School is somewhere on that, or
Well,
where it was.
Bruce has taken me to the Salem
Oh.
School.
It's not there anymore, is it?
Salem
No.
School,
The
when that off
foundation
turn at
was
Fairview,
few
at
years
the
ago.
Fairview Church or Fairfield Church and go to the right, and that's where Salem School was at?
No, that,
No, it's
Kenny
off
Scott
Mook
owned it
Center-
at one time.
Mook Centerview Road.
Right.
It's off Mook Centerview Road.
on the right-hand side,
Right
if
hand
you come
side
to
of
690.
What?
So, I think I can get access to some of those record books, we still got a
wish we
bunch
Through
could.
the
of them.
school, I bet you, it'll be interesting
And
looking.
so Salem School, that's where
Salem School.
all.
Everybody's.
That's the only place our
everybody
dads
here, his
ever went
parents
to
or
school.
grandparents went to Salem School.
Daddy just, and Daddy
That's where
went,
their
did he
pictures
get
was
that,
made.
graduate eighth grade?
We've got pictures of
Always.
them.
Did
They
yours,
went to
Dad,
third,
go
I
to
think.
eighth grade?
Grade school.
I believe that's what it was.
What?
He didn't
We
go
got
very
the
far.
picture.
Yeah, but they went,
I never
Daddy
did
think I
that.
went to
Mama
seventh
said
grade.
Daddy went to eighth
You
grade.
made
Daddy went to
copies
eighth grade, I
out
Said he
there.
started high
I
school.
think they said they went to the seventh, eighth grade. They probably didn't go a whole lot.
Well, I'm not sure they didn't, but.
We've
he
got
did.
school pictures of them at that school.
Have you?
Oh, yeah.
I
I think Franklin Butler's in it too.
No kidding.
But,
Stanley Blair, I
Uncle
think
Paul
Stanley
was,
Blair
Uncle Paul was
was
pretty small then. And Dad and Uncle Raymond, Aunt Bessie, they were all in that picture.
Well, did I not see
And
a
Mr.
picture
Whitworth was
of
their
Harnett?
teacher.
They were at
Well,
Harnett
Whitworth was
School
a teacher, wasn't
Yeah.
He
sometime.
talked about,
it? Andrew Whitworth.
Daddy called him,
Was
Mr.
it
Andrew?
Whitworth?
He called him Mr. Andrew.
Yeah, he was their teacher.
Is it,
Andrew Driscoll.
is that Jimmy Whitworth? Dad. Their dad.
Yeah.
Another thing, when Jones moved to Harnett, he lived in the house I grew up. in.
Over here.
Yeah.
Now, who owned it at that time, do you know?
Clint traded with Charlie Butler, who was a distant cousin.
So Charlie owned the house.
Yeah, he owned the farm, and granddad traded his farm over at Calamese Creek to Charlie and Ola Butler. But the Westview Butlers, and I think, and Bruce probably can show it, I think Edward had two sons, William, which we all come from, and James, which all the other Butlers in the county come from. Finley and all of them.
James Butler,
Huh?
that was his name, James? They-
James. About all the Butlers in the county the ones that trace their history back are either William or James. We're William and they're James, but they all came from Edward.
Uncle Jack that married Aunt Bessie, they not come from there.
Well, but I don't know, but Hardin County was so close to that area.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, but Hardin County's awfully close, so I don't know if they couldn't trace it back to. the
Maybe, I don't
original
know.
two.
Daddy always called them Hardin County Butler. That's what he
Yeah.
always called. Well, they may have lived in Breckenridge County, but he always called them Hardin County because it's so close over.
Well, Dan always said they're from Hardin County.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let me read this to you all. These are just random notes. But I've got, there's a posting by Carol Miller on April 5th, 97. On the internet, she asked for the information on Edward Butler's first wife. She said, now, this is internet information, I mean it's true. She said they had a son, William Butler, born in 1785, possibly in Kentucky. That's what we're talking about.
Oh, yes.
Then she went on, she said he had three wives. Edward was born in Titchfield, Hampshire, England in 1769. You know, we talked about that.
Yeah.
We had a little argument about that.
Surely
It's a
not.
continuing argument, actually. It said his parents were Edward Sr. and Amy Ashley. That doesn't sound right there, does it?
No, see, supposedly when they had, Valentine Ventress had been in the Continental Army since like the beginning, and he had retired. And when they had Cornwallis cornered down there in Virginia, they called him up, and Edward Butler as well, according to Shirley, and they all basically got their squirrel rifles, and Cornwallis surrendered.
I have some notes here where Mimi and Mom and Dad and I went over on a Sunday. I was in law school in 1975. I wish I could find that. And
Bruce has found Valentine's.
he took me to places over there, the best he could remember. And I've always been amazed. It's almost like their memories were wiped out when they left over there. They don't tell you very much about what happened.
There may be a reason.
That may be, yeah.
It was hard
Daddy never
times.
talked about it.
You know, that
Did
changed, and
Uncle
then
Raymond?
Probably roads changed too.
Yeah.
How they got in and out of there.
If I can find it. Anyway, we spent a Sunday afternoon over there, And he showed me
I
where,
think it is still a pretty rough spot to get to.
you turn off 690, I guess Luke Centerview Road. That's the old home place in there. And there used to be a rocked cemetery wall, about 6 people could be buried in it, all grown up now.
Yeah.
Dad didn't know who was buried in it. Then he showed me on the other, we actually tried to find the same school. We found the Salem school, some stones from it.
No
Dad was
kidding.
pretty sure that's where that was. Now it's way back up in the field.
Yeah, I never did see the
Yeah.
Salem school. They told me about where it was.
He said that's the only place he ever went to school,
Yeah.
At Salem?
Salem. And probably, did Uncle Paul go to high school?
Mama said he started
Okay.
He
and
didn't
couldn't
even-
afford it.
Well, Uncle Raymond, Uncle Paul probably didn't.
No, they didn't.
Aunt Bessie.
Had to, so I don't know, had to stay with somebody or something to go to high
But
school.
then we found on near
Come
in
in,
that
John.
area was
Come
the
in, folks.
Davis farm. That's where John's, that's where Granny Davis.
Come on, get up.
Granny
Come on,
Butler.
John, get up
She was a
here.
Davis.
Come up here.
And you go back to the records, her dad, I think, was a preacher. He married her. But there's an old cemetery there that's all grown up. But it's just all so
Now, who did he
different.
marry?
Granny was a Davis, Granny Butler.
She was a Davis.
And she lived on a farm, I think she grew up on a farm right across the road from where our Butlers grew up.
Okay,
That was normal in those days.
yeah.
What's the road off of Luke Centerview where you and Larry and I went that time to see that graveyard, and we think Valentine and Tress is buried there?
That is Book Centerview Road.
No, it's a road off of it. Remember, because you had to take a
The
pistol
road
in
goes
case
off,
there's a
this one goes
line,
back to,
in case there's a
Back to
snake.
Forks there, that's right.
It was right past Larry Leslie, where Larry Leslie lived. And
And the road went to the left,
is it like Dennis or something?
Hagen Dennis.
that road
I'll tell you
goes
some
to the
stories about, we
left.
went to a truck show, I'll tell you some stories about it.
Brett, that road, did the road go to the left?
Hagen Dennis Road.
Hagen
This
Dennis.
road, that's right,
Well, that's
yeah.
the
Keith
Y.
knows, Keith knows.
That's up there at the Y.
Yeah.
Well, but it's still on that
All right.
road before you get to your
I
Now-
know where you're
now
talking
that everybody's
about. Coming down the
here,
hill from Greg Scott's.
John's here, John, I apologize, I was supposed to get hold of you and didn't. So,
That's okay, I didn't know.
Uh,
I've been back,
Well,
way back that road,
I-
back there to John Horson.
I would
down
like
there.
for
He
you
goes-
all to give
That's
your
where I've been
name
on it.
and your birthday.
Oh,
Since
no.
we've already established that you all are okay with being old.
We know that, for a fact.
Okay, so we'll start with, we'll let ladies go first, and it's fitting that Jean is the most
oldest.
experienced of the group. So,
Go ahead, Jim.
Jean Butler Robinson, May 18th, 1932.
I've got some more questions for you about the war, because I think you're about the only one's gonna remember the World War II.
Well,
Just like whenever, I know you don't remember much, but I wanna know
I don't
about
remember
when
much.
Uncle Titan was gone, I was gonna ask that, so, Bob?
Bob Butler, December 29, 1942.
Did you say 42? 42.
I was the youngest one in my class.
That's why I thought you
The
said.
youngest
Yeah.
one in your class.
Yeah.
But it was.
Birthday's last day.
Last day of the year. wasn't it? You're next.
I'm next.
Yep.
Keith Butler. January 22nd, 1950.
So 8 years between you all, almost 8.
He's a young guy.
He introduced me as his much as older brother.
Now, where was Lenny? He between you all.
5 years,
What was his 2
Me, two
years?
of him.
What was his birthday?
44,
26, January 26, 45.
45?
45.
45.
Yeah, I thought he was a year ahead of me in school.
Now,
I'm
you
Larry
know,
Butler, my birthday's 9/12/46.
I'm Paul Ed Butler, my birthday's 5/27/41. Not been very long ago since I celebrated.
John Daly Butler, 11/11/46.
They're gonna put this in the paper.
January the 7th, 1959.
I know you're I haven't seen no cameras and
Brett Butler, October 3rd, 1949. And I asked Dale, if anybody at school called him Dale Edward like we all did, and he said only the old people called him Dale Edward.
And Karen,
Mary Ann Petress.
Mary Ann Petress.
Mary Ann Tress.
Yeah.
But
I'm
all
Bruce
of them
Butler. I was born August 16th, 1949.
You boys need to tell who you are.
Yeah. Yeah, go on.
Dale Butler, April 11th, 1967.
Wow.
60s.
Year we got out of high school.
And Kevin Butler, June 18, 1970.
Dustin Butler, June 14th, 1985.
And here's a young guy
You're
there.
out
He's a kid. And while we got you all here, Brett wants everybody to know when he dies, he wants to be cremated.
Yeah, listen to
That is
that.
not
Make sure
true.
he's cremated.
That is not true.
He had to bring it in.
Do not let him cremate me.
Let's
That
take
way
care
we
about the
can,
war.
that way we can bury him in a coffee can.
Larry
postal
Butler has
digger.
shared with me Brett's greatest fear.
Yes.
That they're standing over the coffin as Larry smokes a cigarette and drinks a real Coke and says, boy, he looks good, don't he?
He's afraid I'll be able to do that. That would hurt him to know we
That's
Right
what, that's what
before
Linda always
cremation.
Right
says. She
before
didn't want
cremation.
that.
Brett, don't
Somebody
worry,
said,
Dustin, I've been working on Cripple Creek for a long time.
You know, I kinda like a closed coffee.
Well, he's quit for Cripple Creek.
Don't know, but I don't like.
I got one more story.
Yeah,
On
I don't know
my,
about the cremation.
they're gonna play
I don't
Cripple
want-
Creek
I
on
like
the way,
close
Larry's
coffee.
gonna play Cripple Creek as they come
like
in,
walk up, look
and then
at it.
Cripple Creek on the way out. And Marilyn said, do you really like Cripple Creek? I said, no, it's the only song Larry can play.
Yeah, I kinda like them, they didn't have anything.
We're gonna have
Yeah,
the funeral
yes, it
at
does.
10, then we're gonna have the auction at 1. While the
And
crowd's
the meal at 3, wasn't it?
And Ellen can bring her boyfriend with
If
her.
he wants to, that's optional, doesn't make any difference.
Let Gene tell about
So
that.
there was only one of the family that was in the war, is that right, in World War II?
Your dad, but one of yours.
Yeah, I mean, was any of your family, Brett, or your?
Dad.
Your
Yeah, his
was?
dad's
Yeah.
in.
He was
Okay, I
in
didn't know
Burma.
that.
Yeah,
He was in Burma?
Burma, yeah.
Now, Ethel Kuiper told me him and Uncle Tank walked across Europe.
Yeah.
Who?
They were foot soldiers. Ethel Kuiper, Kathy Kuiper's dad,
Okay.
Kingswood, but he told me they walked across Europe.
So they were in the same unit or whatever?
I guess.
He got injured pretty badly over there, didn't he? Ethel did?
Yeah, he had a plate in his
He
head. or
got
something.
injured. I'll tell you a story, Duncan Times, they told on him about being in service. He told me, talked to him a little bit about it. They never would say much about being over there. Never would talk very much about it. Anyhow, this one story that I remember he told him, I don't know, I think it's true. He was guard duty, and he said he was guarding a pile of lumber at this place. I don't know where it was. But anyhow, there was an orchard there, and something kept sounded just like somebody walking. And at night, he couldn't tell what it was. The next morning, he found out it was apples falling off the tree.
Oh, well, you're right, Uncle Tank, I think he had a pretty extensive combat history in
Yeah,
World War
yeah,
II,
yeah.
he did talk about, which is normal.
Right.
But I didn't know about that till the 50th anniversary of D-Day. They had a celebration at the courthouse, and he came to it.
Yeah,
He
he
didn't go to stuff. And then that's when I kind of talked to him about it, and he said, he was at D-Day.
Yeah.
But he was almost apologetic. He said, I was like D-Day 2. He said, they'd cleared it out. He said, we got to walk pretty much
He wasn't in
without
the
being shot
actual,
at.
the rough part, basically,
Right.
right, he was.
But
He
he was,
evidently was into pretty rough stuff. Tell him what he told you all about the Vietnam War.
oh yeah, he told me, I was about draft age, and I was ready to get drafted to go to Vietnam. It was pretty hot then, and I would talk to him about that because he was an Army guy, and he said, I'd probably go to Canada.
Yeah, and that's unusual for Uncle Tank to be the type of person he was to be, but that's what he felt.
Well, for a combat veteran.
But Dwight I wish Dwight was here.
He was
He's researched
invited.
this, and he has an extensive history of Uncle Tank's military service. It's pretty impressive.
He got there on June 7 or 8, he still saw some pretty bad
Oh, yeah,
stuff.
he did, but he got there, I think
Yeah.
he called it D2, I think.
D2.
He's over there a long time, wasn't he?
He was in the service the whole war, I think.
Yeah, I guess, I don't know.
So,
I didn't
Gene, do
realize
you
that long.
remember anything about him being gone and talking about it or anything?
You know about when he started dating Anna Ray, don't you remember that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember
she was,
that.
it was when Mom quit working in Tobin and Butler store down here that Martha and Dad had, and because she's pregnant John, and Norma Ray was out of high school, and she started working there when Mom quit.
And he stopped and see her, wouldn't
Yeah.
he? Uncle Tank stopped and see her,
Stopped and see
wouldn't
her.
he?
Yeah, Uncle Tank was stopped there, and they had gas out there, I thought, gas pump, I think he'd
Now,
get
where was the
gas.
store at, Gene?
Huh?
Where was the store you're talking about?
Down here on the corner where as you turn to go to Ephesus.
Blair store?
Blair store,
Yeah.
oh, Blair store,
Yeah,
okay.
Dad and Walk and Tobin had that.
I didn't know that.
So Tobin was here at that time.
Uh-huh,
I didn't know when.
uh-huh.
Well, let me tell you two more stories before I forget, but it's been years ago, but I wanted Wade to take me over to the Calamese Creek area, show me where people lived. Well, he come running out and jumped in the car, and he told Larry I drove too fast, but anyway.
It's not like him to complain about it.
No.
We drove all over that area, and he really didn't know much, and then he told me, so you do this for years, he was 4 years old when they left. So that's why he didn't know anything, because he didn't live there at the time.
Well, that kind of answers, was it you, Kevin, that called me a year or two ago, you put together something for Christmas, you wanna know when we migrated out from back there in the Harnett and so
That's right.
forth?
Yep.
That kind of.
Well, he told me it was 4, and then the other story, and Bruce has got the deed, and I've given it to some people, but again, getting back to Nettoball and all that stuff, and I think your dad tried to buy the farm, but when, had he died or was getting ready to die, and everybody deeded their part of the farm to Josephine Lastly.
Right.
It was Sam and Josephine Lastly then, and now it's Leslie.
Right.
But, and John got $2,000 for some reason. John got, and Wade didn't know this, but there were 4 women, 4 girls, all of them had Illinois addresses. So they had left, and the only one he really knew was
I
Josephine.
think 2 of them are brothers.
I think Waddell's, if I can remember right.
Wardrobe.
Wardrobe.
So who were the first ones to leave Calamese Creek and move out here of the brothers?
Jones was the first, Dad said Jones was the first one to come up
We're
here.
gonna wind up
If I'm
convicted
Wade
felons.
was born in 16, that would've been about 1920.
Where did Jones move to when he left
Yeah, where did he
Moody?
move to?
Over here where
Over there, over there.
where I grew up.
Well, would
The house.
Daddy been the first one to
There was
come
a
with the brothers
picture-
come out here?
Two-story
because
Yeah.
he- Didn't
There's
Daddy
a
marry
picture-
before the brothers?
I think
He's the
Bruce
first
has,
one
he
that
first got a
married.
picture of
Because
them
Mom
on the
used to talk
porch of
about,
that
I
old
think
house.
Uncle Raymond stayed there sometimes with them.
Wonder when it was built, do you have any idea?
Maybe Uncle
1860,
Paul or something.
Yeah, they get
3.
married.
So it was right Civil War.
When did Uncle Pete
Married,
and
I can say.
Was
I
built.
think some of them stayed with me as they
It's
worked.
still
What
standing.
did Uncle Raymond work at first when he come out here?
Pretty straight.
Percy Tucker Garage, he worked
yeah,
there.
Percy Tucker
He worked
Garage.
somewhere Mom used to talk about.
But I don't know if that's the first.
It was.
He worked at the Black Rock
At
mine up there.
At an asphalt mine.
Yeah, Black Rock.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Black Rock.
Garfield.
Yeah.
Black Rock.
Yeah,
they said he's a-
Up other side of Garfield. but-
Yeah,
I
well,
think
in
he
there.
stayed
Garfield there.
It's right out
Mom
past
and
where I
them
used to
lived
live.
I heard
Lost
Dad
Run
say
Road.
that they said he's the toughest guy there.
Yeah, oh,
Big-
yeah.
The big guys
was.
that would fall the wayside. and
Pass out from
Uncle
the heat.
Raymond
Oh,
would
yeah,
still be
he still
working.
go, I
Yeah.
know it. Neil Morris.
That was kid dad's, because his dad
father-in-law
just
was
lasted
his
a day or two,
partner.
and Uncle Raymond
No
stayed.
kidding.
Lee
Garfield
Hamilton.
father-in-law.
He liked Mr. Hammond,
Well,
Mr.
didn't Daddy
Lee, and
work
stayed
for
through the
Mr.
hard
Mill
work.
No kidding.
Davis?
Yeah, black guy.
Dad
I
And
didn't
I
know
think
that.
that's
Yeah.
when.
What's
That was
I was
Garfield
born
Duncan's
then,
father-in-law,
and I think
Lee
that's
And he got to be a
That's
when
right.
Raymond would stay
engineer
there
or
sometimes,
fireman
I
on
guess,
the
and with
train or
them and
something,
work,
didn't
because she said he used to.
I don't know.
it'd be-
I've heard Daddy
it'd
say
be
that.
Funny to talk ugly.
Hey,
and
y'all-
step-
We got already. Bob, you got any tales you want to tell about your dad or anything going on?
He may have, got that. I know they said he was tough on that, in that mine.
Yeah, yeah.
That he could stay there. Yeah, you don't know, and I heard the story about the black guy. Yeah, him and the black guy were the two that could stay the longest. And I think Uncle Pete went with him one time and stayed about a day.
Yeah.
Didn't stay very long.
Got all he
Didn't stay
wanted.
very long.
Didn't Uncle
He
Raymond,
learned all he needed to know.
didn't Uncle Raymond get promoted? Did he drive the little, they call it the little dinky train that haul that rock out of
I
there?
don't know whether he drove it or not, but they, for a time or two, he said they had no elevator where Billy Compton used to live. you
Right.
know,
Yeah.
And to railroad track. And the elevator break down, and I was telling about him and Lee Hamilton, that was Garfield Duncan's father-in-law, black guy.
Okay.
And they would shovel the dinky cars into the rail cars so they could do 2 a night.
Two a night.
Whoa.
Did they use that asphalt to build Highway 60?
I don't know whether you could have.
I guess. I don't.
Now, Smith one built the highway, wasn't he?
Well, who was the guy that Uncle Raymond shot down at Van Zandt or wherever it was?
Don't remember.
You don't know his name? I never did hear anybody say.
Is that the one where Hoover shut the door on it?
Yeah. He told me the story about it.
I really thought he was a Haynes, but I'm not.
Haynes. Would they have a warrant for him or?
Yeah.
I about had to believe his last name was Haynes.
Did it
but
kill
I
him?
never thought about it.
No.
No, it didn't.
Shot him in the arm or leg or
Was
something.
Uncle Raymond
Went
deputy
with
sheriff
him,
or
didn't he?
sheriff?
Sheriff.
He was high sheriff then, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Hoover was his deputy.
Yeah, because Huber was his deputy.
He went in and shut,
He went
Hoover
in to
shut the
get him,
door on
and
him.
Hoover shut the door.
Yeah. Huber was supposed, Uncle Raymond was gonna go in, the story told me,
Didn't want
and
to
Huber's
bother
gonna
him.
come in behind him and shut the door. Huber just forgot to come in. He let Uncle Raymond
He
get
let
in,
Uncle
then he
Raymond go
shut
in.
the door. Uncle Raymond said, I had to shoot him.
He didn't want anybody else coming in to bother
No,
him.
you're right.
Jean's got some information that may be pertinent, she was telling while we were all talking. Talk about, you were talking about who was there first. Tell about what you remember about, they told you when Uncle Raymond maybe would spend, Dad was married first, I think. And he apparently had come out here, and Uncle Raymond would spend some time there at them. Tell that, that'd be interesting.
Yeah, that'd be interesting.
And Uncle Paul also. I was sure about Uncle Paul borrowed a tie from Dad to get married,
Yeah.
and I've always heard that story.
Yeah.
But they kind of hung around Dad's place, I think.
Yeah.
Is that right, Gene?
Yeah. You mean what I told you about?
Yeah,
Mom
good-
said
good.
Uncle Raymond would give me
Yeah.
money to talk ugly.
See, Gene was the first grandchild.
And Mom said she made him quit. Got after Uncle
Well,
Raymond.
where did you live at then, Gene? Where'd you live at?
Daddy lived, I guess up here.
Where'd the
on
home-
Uncle
where you
Mill's
live on the
house.
corner?
I was at Uncle Mill Davis. It was
Yeah,
Forrest and
He
Carl
worked
Davis's
for
dad.
Bill
Daddy worked
Davis.
for him, see, on the
I didn't know
farm.
that.
But apparently he was married and before they did,
Yeah.
and that's kind of more convenient to hang out at Harn than Mook, I would say. No.
Yeah.
No, I didn't
But I
think
know
so.
she talked
A lot
about
more
that
going
they-
on.
I know those two stayed with him.
Yeah.
with
Okay.
them.
Daddy and Uncle Raymond.
Uh-huh, stay there some,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, Wade told me, getting back to Harnett against Mood, but I was telling Donnie, Wade told me that Harnett was a happening place. They had a saloon, the railroad and everything, and
Yeah.
had
Daddy-
to step up for him, I guess.
Well, we've kind of reverted back to that. We got about 15 liquor stores here now.
Yeah.
Well,
Daddy be right in the middle
We
there.
got
Yeah.
four
Across
other
the road.
stores,
she
huh?
Like
needs
I
one
am.
close so she can go over and get her booze and stuff.
You know, Daddy always called Harnett Station
Harnett Station.
because of the railroad station. It took me years to finally figure out what he's talking about, but it's hard. And they come in from out in the county and bring their produce, whatever it was, loaded on the train here.
That was the L&N.
No.
No, it was.
Hardinsburg and Western was the
yeah.
name of
And
that.
see that old railroad, depot.
Then it run
into the
down
L&N.
down
I
there.
can remember the
Yeah,
old
Irvington.
pickle place in the,
Yeah,
right,
so.
in the, on, been there on the, you can too, I'm sure, Gene. Out there next to the road, right in front of where Kenny Blair's house is at now, or Mr. Robinson's house. It was on next to the road right
That
there.
big old tobacco
Right,
barn.
yeah.
Now, isn't that the railroad that runs up by our place? Bob, do you all remember railroad ties or anything? Can you remember seeing?
Oh,
part
there
of
was
the
a railroad.
Yeah.
Come
Yeah,
right
it was
down
taken,
in-
it was taken, it was cindered, it was taken out just a year or two before.
The Ephesus boys used to walk up and play softball and baseball at Raymond's, and we walked that cinder road.
Cinder road. The
Bus
road
let
in
me
front
off
of,
out there at the
in the
road.
road in front of your place,
Yeah,
that's
that's it, yeah,
that's
that's
it.
the road,
Back there.
and part of the old
It went
railroad
right in
fence
front
is
of
still over.
Jackie
on the
Bear
other
and
side.
Bob Miller's
Still
house.
60 was there.
There's some of it up here really well.
60 was there and it let you off there and you walked
Let me
out.
off there, because the other was
Good
over
fence,
at
wasn't it?
Bob
Stayed
Miller's.
there. It was a good
The
fence.
road
Well,
didn't
that's
come
what
up
Morris
there
Davis thought
by
that
you all
was
now.
That's
the
what this
original
is.
Yeah,
fence.
I remember the old road.
And
Henry
it, oh man,
Holloway
was
and
Other road up there by
Lee
Bob
Wills
Mills still
lived
came
along
out.
there.
Him,
I said,
There was
5 foot.
railroad track, the
According
train
to
come
Lee,
down
he
through there, and they
wanted to
throw
put it on
candy
5
out to
foot.
those kids down there, you know.
grace on
And so
both
when,
sides there.
I went to, when I started school, school was here.
Yeah, Harnett.
Yeah, and Miss Grace Davis was
Ben,
my
He had a
teacher.
boy.
And I didn't want to
Country
leave
ham,
home,
man.
and I cried every day. Mom made me come, she'd make me come, but I'd cry, and I went home, I walked home 2 or 3 times, and they'd bring me back the time I walked home. I got in, Mom said, well, Jean, said, how did you come? Said, up that highway? Of course, wasn't any cars then,
No,
you know.
no.
I said, no, I came the railroad track. Train being worse than,
The railroad track.
Where
But
was the
now,
school?
right here.
this is school, this is a
Yeah.
school lot,
So you
Harnett
said
school
right
lot,
here,
right
I
here.
here.
went to school till I was in the,
Back
raised in
original
the
days,
5th
you
grade,
come
and
from
then I
Brazos
went
County
to
School.
Hardinsburg.
Did you ever ride the train, Gene?
Me and Mom rode it one time, Mammy and Pap Thornhill,
Mm-hmm.
lived down in Kirk. And me and Mom got on and went down, rode down there,
There you go.
There you
Now, that's
go.
There's your
something.
link.
get on down here.
That's
at the
something.
depot,
That is
you
something.
know.
I didn't know you rode the train.
And then do you all remember Miss Hardin Alexander, Genevieve?
I do.
She tested cream there at, there was a cream station at the end of that.
What do you mean tested cream? For-
Huh?
to see if it was-
They bring
Bought cream.
milk and
Milky cow.
milk
Kept
cow
on
and bring.
creaming.
And
They said it would divide
Brown,
between
Allie
them.
Brown on the
The
glass.
right cream, yeah. Huh?
She had a
Allie
little
ran
office
glass
right at the
and
end of
Allie
the
Brown
depot.
on the
Yeah.
glass.
Yeah, some way she do that,
They-
some process
where was
through
it
there,
at?
get the cream off the milk.
Yeah.
Down here.
Yeah. Gene, Before I forget, I know it's old times, but tell them, if you do, I'll try to help you if I can, because then I'll mix those. What was in Harnett, when you remember the stores that were here back years ago, I'm talking
Yeah,
about?
Percy Macy's.
Okay.
Down here.
And right on the corner, if I remember right, I'm telling the boys
Yeah.
now, if you could step out where well, it's a service station, his store was probably within 2 feet or 3 feet of the highway, wasn't it? It was right close to
See,
it.
I thought that was behind that service.
No, no, it was in front of it. I know where it was
You're
at.
wrong,
I've been
John.
in it. Gene
It was
did.
behind it facing
Y'all-
that house.
No,
wasn't
you're wrong.
it? Y'all need pictures. I wish you had video. You're
I'm
wrong.
gonna argue with, and I'm right, Gene.
Yeah, you're
Behind the station, facing the house.
It's just to get on
I've been in there.
I was up there the other day, there's some crazy
Be a
times.
bunch of
Gene,
them
I
together.
remember.
you know,
Lawnmowers.
that's where the bus
What
was
about it,
stopped.
Jim? That's
There are a bunch
I
of
just remember the story, it seemed like it was long to me. I
It
remember
was
being in
long,
the store.
had a porch on it and metal pipe holding,
Yeah,
you
it's
swing on them
turned.
posts.
I'm gonna argue with them.
Facing,
I remember- I
Dark
remember
store, you
being
go
in
to
the
feed
store.
bags on each side of the aisle, just
Yeah.
a little pathway kind of through there. The way I remember Percy Macy's store was, all those glass cases of candy and stuff.
Yeah.
Is that
Yeah,
how you remember
that's
that?
where Charlie told Mom, Charlie Robinson, remember?
Yeah.
When Mom and them had the store down there, he came
They had
in
the
and
competing store.
Charlie was watching his pennies then. And, y'all remember those fudge candy company squares,
Oh,
you know? Square, and so they had a glass candy case. Everybody had a glass candy case. He crawled up there and he said, he used to come up and look and sit with Mom, talk to her when she's down there. And he said, Louise said, how much is this candy? And she said, 2 pieces for a nickel. He said, shoot, said, you can go to Percy Macy's and get it 3 for a nickel. So he got down and he went and got it. She said she knew what he was going to do. She went up there and got it. He come back down there and sat with Mom and ate it.
Ate the candy.
That's a good story.
That's one of the things they told, Bruce told down at Charlie's
At his funeral.
memorial service we went to.
Yeah.
They talked about how tight Charlie was and how he liked chocolate. I said, I got a store that takes care of both though.
That's right.
That's what, I've heard Mom tell that before.
Yeah, she just tickled her
Were there
death
any
when
other
got
stores
that.
besides those two?
Oh, yeah.
Huh?
Were there any other stores besides?
Yes, there was, Vern Wilson had a store
Had a little
right
store,
next to,
right
Little bitty.
Little
little
store.
bitty thing facing, it's facing the road.
it was
Yeah,
facing the
facing the road.
highway.
It was a saloon at one time, wasn't it?
Chris Butler had a.
And Chris had
Chris
across,
Butler.
Chris was the only thing used to be open in Breckenridge County on Sunday.
But Mom and Dad had a filling station over on the other side of the road, didn't they?
Yeah,
That's Chris
Mr. Bill
Butler.
Skillman run that first, that, when it Gulf
Yeah.
Service Station.
I remember Stanley Blair's store, and I remember Chris Butler's store beside it. And then you got the standard station, I call it now, is that right?
Yeah, Chris
Okay,
was actually,
Uncle Pete and them, was it that big, I thought 2-story building?
It was
Was it
here.
2-story building, wasn't it?
Yeah,
That
that's
Stanley
where they-
Blair had, that's what Uncle Pete had too.
No, they had
Where they had the store.
Yeah, I guess they didn't with Tobin.
Chris
That's what I
Butler,
meant.
he ran that Barnes Wilson.
See, I don't remember them having
store.
They
At
had a
once
state
after he moved
filling
across the
station
road.
on the other side of the road there for a distance.
Yeah, he
Percy
had,
Tucker's,
Whose house was in between?
now that's where they used to loaf at night. Percy
Shell-
Tucker's.
sold
Daddy
it.
go down there every night,
Shell-
and Mom go with him. That's where
Rosemary
Mom
Glen.
used to come
Frank,
from.
it's Stephen,
Percy Tucker,
Frank
Percy
Shelton's
Tucker's
house.
dad?
Rick Shell.
Harold Tucker's dad, yeah, Mike's granddaddy. He and Miss Frankie had
I've
a,
always heard that's where Uncle Raymond was a really good mechanic, was some
Yeah.
kind of, was it Model T or Model
Model
A?
A.
He was supposed to be really good at.
Model A.
Did he work for Mr. Tucker?
Like the
I guess he did there,
Now, Daddy talked about that.
but we went
Yeah,
down
that's
there
where the
almost
old band
every
was
night.
yelling.
Daddy
took
would
place.
loaf down there because Uncle Raymond.
Shane
worked.
Martin.
And I remember
Yeah.
getting those little Cokes
Yeah.
down there every night, I could get one of those little, they just taste better than these
Put
Cokes
peanuts in
now, them little
Put
bottles.
peanuts in them.
No, I
I
didn't know
remember
how
Mom
to
used to
do
put
that,
peanuts
I
in
didn't
her
know what
Cokes.
to say.
Oh, yeah,
Back
that
then, I
that was
didn't.
a popular thing to do back years ago, Dr. Pepper too.
And Virgil Goodman
You bet.
and Miss
He had
Daddy had
back
a
off the
restaurant.
on the old railroad.
I can't,
Yes.
Back I had ice cream, had best ice cream.
And Rosemary and Johnny and them lived in, you remember Rosemary and Johnny Glenn lived in a house right
Right
next to where,
between-
where the
So,
restaurant
right,
was.
yeah.
oh, that's true. I don't know, you're talking politics.
And that restaurant
I'm
had,
not gonna let
Paul
politics
didn't have
influence my
apartments
vote.
upstairs.
Or Marlboro, it's either one.
That restaurant had apartments upstairs.
Miss Goodman?
Well, it could be.
Uh-huh, the
Or-
Goodman
Yeah,
restaurant.
yeah.
I believe it had an
But it
apartment.
always,
It's
at
made
that
influence, so
time,
it's not a bad deal.
if I'm not mistaken, the road was still the Cinder Road. Even though the ties, that was the old railroad in front of
Yeah,
Miss
back
Goodman.
behind there.
Behind Miss Goodman's store, yeah. I walked up there and got, from down where we lived down there and got ice cream. That's been a long time ago.
Gene, a story I heard, and you can tell us if it's true or not, that when your mother was pregnant with Bruce, you said it was embarrassing or something because you're so much older? And she told you he'll be the one that ends up taking care of all of us, something like that?
Yeah, I was a senior in high school.
I've been
We
there.
already had John, and he was about 3, see. And then she told me, and I was a senior in high school, and I had long hair. I had hair then, I don't have it now. And she was washing my hair, and they told me, I cried. But I was, back there then, when I graduated, well, you was embarrassed if your mom was pregnant. Wasn't I
Well,
mean?
they had the same
She
thing
said,
with me.
you know what she said? She did, she
I
said,
don't
you
think
just shut
cried.
up. You know how mom be, she said, you just shut up. She said, he's gonna be the one sent here to take care of us all. God knew what he's doing, so here I am, Bruce.
I didn't realize that there
Calamese
was
Creek?
18 years between you
After
guys.
the move,
17.
after the move,
Yeah.
move
Yeah,
set.
I don't know
So-
this.
Now, what Hudson Road
Yeah,
is?
you missed it, yeah.
Yeah, I
I wouldn't
don't
give a
know
driver's
where
license
Jericho
if he knew the other
No,
day,
no,
'cause
No,
going
no.
I
down,
knew I
going
down
better
and going.
make sure and get them
No,
to,
you
I
cut-
couldn't.
cut
take
the
Told me
road
tests.
she wants to get
Yeah.
tested
And
again.
turn
turn
off.
off
so
right off
she
6
Go
nine.
through talking to him.
You go up
made a
there, you'll
picture
go
and all.
over
She
one or
said,
two little
"Now, how much
culverts,
older
and then you
next
go up
time
over a
was you
rock
when Bruce
ledge or
came
two,
along?"
and then it kinda in a curve, it's all
I
to the
said,
right.
how much older is
That's
you?
right, that's where it's at.
That's where they come from.
17
Who
years.
owns
Where's it
that
come
la-
from?
who owns
She
that
said,
land
well, you're
now?
like his mom.
I don't know.
I said, yeah.
I guess their old house and everything's all.
Brett can tell you who.
I don't know.
One
It's
story
gone.
that Dad told me, Uncle Pete and Uncle Raymond took him to Louisville the first time he ever went.
Oh,
And he said that was the biggest place he'd ever seen in his life. They took him to some Market Street or something downtown, some beer joint. Well, they wasn't drinking, he got a hamburger. He said it's the best thing I've ever had. But now, I don't know what they was doing, they went to Louisville for something, and he rode with them.
well, do you all remember the Gregory's, Norman Gregory?
Oh,
and,
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And his mom,
Annabelle?
Dad. Remember
I remember
John
Miss
Norman-
Gregory's on.
Hear Dad talk about this, I guess when Daddy would haul stuff in his truck, a little farm, well, Norman and his daddy would go one sometimes, and Miss Gregory would fix some fried chicken to take with them to eat, but Norman wanted them hamburgers.
Oh, yeah. Speaking, I'll tell you Norman Grigger's story. He used to drive a wrecker for Daddy, and I've rode with him some, and we go to these country stores, which there was a lot of them at that time. About every wide spot in the road had a country store. And they had the bologna that hung up, and you sliced it off, and it was good. Go get a sandwich, and Norman would say, slice me a slice of bologna and slice it just as thick as you want.
You
The
like
bologna
these,
hung
didn't
in the seat from the.
Hung, it was not, it didn't
They
refrigerate.
didn't use no refrigerator.
Norman was always a good friend of the family.
Wasn't no refrigerator.
Yeah, he always was, yeah.
Dad liked for Norman, when he got old, Norman to drive for Dad sometimes.
Yeah,
Sometimes he'd
Norman
take
was the
state
driver,
fair.
that's what he
Well,
did, yeah.
used to, at the ball games, tournament time, when I was in school, why, we'd want to go when it was district tournament. And, it was usually in Hallsville Lewisport and like that.
Yeah.
Norman had a car, he always had a car. And so Daddy had a gas tank up there, remember them old ones you
Yeah,
pumped?
fill
and
up,
all?
yeah.
And so he'd bring his car up there and I'd fill his car
Gas
with
as
gas.
you go.
And he'd take me and Rosemary and Lois and.
Yeah.
You took all the Harney girls back then. Yeah.
That Rosemary was a good looker, wasn't she?
Yes, she was,
Yeah.
Oh, she's a pretty thing.
Sweetest, she's always good to me.
I got one story about Jones that Dad told me. When Jones was a kid, back then they would take their grain to the mill or whatever, they'd mill it. And Jones had taken some up there and it was going pretty slow, and Jones said, well, I could eat that meal as fast as you're grinding it. And the miller said, yeah, but how long could you eat it for? And Jones said, till I starved to death. Dad told that story.
How did your dad get the name Crocodile?
I don't know.
Well, speaking of nicknames, you all know that Daddy and Uncle Raymond was the only two of them that didn't have nicknames. And I don't know why, didn't you say they didn't want them, is that right?
I asked Uncle Wade once, I said, why did they not have nicknames? He said they didn't want none. Evidently they'd had trouble over that.
Yeah, sometime or
He didn't
another.
like calling him that, Dad called him Ab.
Yeah, he called me Ab, that's what he called him, Ab.
And how did Uncle Tiny, I know he was a tiny baby, they said, and they called him Tintsy and all that.
What Uncle
But where did
Wade
Case come from?
I don't know, Daddy
I never
called him
heard
Case.
Daddy called him Case.
That's what Daddy
I
called
never
him.
heard that.
Daddy called him
Where did
Case.
Square come from? For Raymond?
I don't know.
Well, they think that was a squire or something, wasn't it, instead of
Yeah,
square?
that's what Yours once always called my dad.
Yeah.
Was it Square or
Where
Squire?
did that
Squire.
come from?
Daddy called
We
him
don't know.
Square.
Daddy called him Squire, S-Q-U-A-R-E.
Oh, Square.
Not Squire. Of course, I was Uncle
So he had
Pete,
a
always Uncle
nickname-
Pete to me,
he had a
not Daddy,
nickname
it's
or
Uncle Pete,
nickname?
that's what I always called
Where
him,
did
Uncle
Pete
Pete.
come from?
Huh?
I don't have
We have no idea.
I don't know.
His name
And
was
that's what everybody
David.
knew.
Dave.
Dave.
Nothing else.
He have a middle
Like
name?
John's.
No,
Well, I know, but just Daly Butler.
Yeah, he didn't have a middle name.
He didn't have middle name.
Keith doesn't have a middle name
Uncle
either.
Raymond didn't either, right?
They ran out
He
of,
didn't have a middle name?
No.
Just Raymond Butler.
Daddy's was Paul
Dad didn't
Hoffman,
either.
where did Hoffman come from?
That's what I-
It was a well now, was we talking about that sometime, was that a
Mama always said it was Hoffman Cannon.
Cannon, yes, that's
There
right.
was a
why did they
Hoffman
name
Cannon,
you
I've
Paul
heard of.
Edwards instead of Paul Hoffman
I
Jr.?
heard of Edward from.
I don't know, I have no idea.
Descendant.
I don't know, Brad, I don't know where
Native all.
the Edward come from back, I guess, our distant,
I
from
wondered
what
if
Bruce
he'd heard
and
that
you all
name.
told me.
Well, I'm sure
We had
he's
some
heard it.
distant
So-
kinfolk back, our great-grandpeople way back, their name was Edward.
I guess it was.
And I guess Dad didn't remember, I don't know if that's what happened, I don't know, I don't have a
You
clue.
didn't know, I know you didn't
I
know,
never known either.
but Dad always talked about John and Alice.
Yeah,
He stayed with them, evidently thought a lot of them. But no, they died before. Was Alice alive, Bob, or anything that you ever remember? Not at all.
Now, John died in 28, I think.
Yeah, but
according to
Alice
his
died
tombstone.
later.
Yeah, but
You
I
never
don't know
heard of
when.
him, Gene.
Huh?
You never
John's
Granny.
buried up here, isn't he,
Remember
Larry?
Granny Butler.
Larry,
I was a little,
isn't John buried
I
up
can tell
here?
you when
Yeah.
she died.
Now, you saying
Well,
Granny is
all right,
Alice?
you
Your
mean,
mom and dad lived with them a little while. They
yeah,
were
when I was a
married.
baby.
When you were a baby.
was John
got
Dallas?
Where did you know where they lived at? Where is that?
I think it was out here, close to where Linda's,
Yeah,
It's out here,
it's
it's
Heaver Arm.
Heaver Arm place.
Yeah.
And where your people are, that was the house along in there, the two-story house where your grandmother lived at,
I
yeah.
remember I was scared in that house.
Oh, was
They
he?
had the upstairs.
yeah.
Grandma, I guess, told us that a witch lived in there.
Well, see, that's what they told me about Man's place
But
out
that's-
here.
huh?
I never could go upstairs to Man's place.
No, I
They
never,
told
I
us
wouldn't have, they never would let me go
Alice
up.
Davis,
Yeah,
who was
Miss,
Granny
what was her
Butler,
name? Stay with me.
died
Miss-
in 1937.
Miss Miles.
Miles,
Yeah.
Miss Miles.
I was
I was
5 years
bad
older than
anyway, so
Granny.
you
Yeah,
need to tell
Miles,
me
Miss
something.
Miles.
You said I looked
Miss
like
Miles
Granny
said
when
they
I
could
had
scoot
the
some stuff up there.
What was that, Bruce?
didn't
Granny,
go. I
who we
didn't
called
go.
Granny Butler, who was John's wife, she was a Davis. She died in 1937. John died in 1928.
That's what Larry said that too.
They were married in 1880. And she was a Davis, and from that area over there. Of course, in those days, a lot of people married their next door
Oh, yeah.
neighbors.
Oh, yeah.
You know,
Yeah, a
only
lot
you
of
knew.
the, lot of the,
Evidently, John did pretty good. Dwight brought me some stuff where he bought tobacco. Him and Uncle Dal Mercer bought tobacco from people and stuff. And then they had problems, the crop year messed up some way, and they lost a lot of money. I think John had to take the lick because Uncle Dal couldn't come up with his part. And that put him in bad shape at one time.
I remember Dad talked about how John had nice barns, or self-supporting roof barns and stuff.
Yeah.
Dad always was impressed with.
And I've got canceled checks. I should have brought some of them where he would buy tobacco from people.
Yeah.
You know, pretty good amounts, up to $100, maybe $150.
So he had a bank account somewhere.
The Farmers Bank,
bank, Hardinsburg.
Hardinsburg, or Farmers Bank and Trust, whatever.
Well, let me get, before I forget
Show
while I'm
John
here,
that picture.
but net of all not the Edward came over,
That's the
but
last one we
Edward,
saw.
that was John's father,
Here's these pictures that
died at
Larry brought,
92.
too.
And he lost his wife, and the story my grandmother told me was, he was going courting at 90, and
Yeah, you can tell he wasn't feeling good.
fell off his horse or something, he broke his hip, and back then they didn't have anything, and he died at 92. And
That's a good
then
picture.
his son, my great-grandfather,
I think it's
Edward,
a
died at
dog.
82,
That mama,
and
Yeah.
Clint died at 72, and Uncle Albert always said he died at 62, but he reversed it, he died
78,
at 82.
72.
At 82. Well,
Overall,
Gene,
died
do you
92.
remember anything about the O'Banion shooting at Harnett? Did you hear about it at all when, I don't know what year
She's
that
not
happened.
gonna say if she does.
I don't blame her.
Still ongoing?
About all the boys was there except Uncle Wade, I reckon, maybe Uncle Tynant wasn't, but,
You have that.
Uncle Raymond was there,
That's in
Daddy
Book-
was there.
Will Book 1.
Daddy testified
Dad
in
was
court,
there.
and your dad was
Yeah,
there.
what's it-
Percy
Will Book
Tucker's
179.
garage was They all worked for Percy Tucker at one time or another,
Where
evidently.
was Percy Tucker's garage?
Where the RC distributorship was,
Okay,
that's
yeah.
it.
Yeah.
I remember that.
And
Now,
there's a
Duncan
black
Pete
colored
broke a leg
church
or
right
something
beside
for him,
it
didn't
too.
Where
Uncle Pete got his leg broke working
Yeah.
for him.
Colored
did
church
turn
down
truck.
there.
Turn
right
truck.
there.
Turn truck
All
on.
down here from.
I remember the
across
RC dealer.
Huh?
You remember that?
Hodges, right beside that house, where Trent Brown, between Trent Brown and that house.
Daddy said Uncle Pete had that leg broken. They put him in a rocking chair and put stove wood under the rocker so it wouldn't move and let the leg heal up. And he said they'd go by and act like they's gonna grab that stove wood out there and push that chair, said he'd squall.
And he was living in that, what we call the Payne house.
Yeah.
They're right by Gene's house now.
Yeah.
They were renting
The
that.
two-story
renting that.
house there?
Oh, okay.
No,
That's where they were living, I think, when he had his leg broken.
No kidding.
Now, that was Jones and them when they were kids?
Yeah, well, Dad was grown when that happened, but Jones and them lived there.
But they were at home, all of home, I guess.
They never did own a place till they got older, did they? Papa and them all.
I don't think so.
He was a tenant farmer. He
Wade
was-
told me that when
That's
they
what I
bought that place, that one year tobacco was really high, like 1917 or something, but, well, anyway, tobacco got high, and somebody told them, not to make just to make their payment, not pay it off, and of course, being a butler, they paid it off, but they made so much money off their tobacco one year, and, but that was when we were driving over there, that
Yeah.
they evidently paid it off back then, or a bunch of
A lot
it,
of
so.
times.
Well, they bought that from Herman Niles, I believe. Didn't they, Bruce?
I don't know.
I believe he financed it for
Was he the one that?
Which one are you talking about, Larry?
him. The farm down at,
Down at
Westview, Westview.
Is that the one that Bill Tom said was a great person, or is that?
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Herman Niles died, and Uncle Bill Tom traded him notes. Of course, he traded him notes, and when Herman Niles died, he said, he come in the house, he was mad. And he said, there, Herman Niles, a good man's dead, and he said, Joe Aldridge will live forever. He done just, he
Joe,
just
remember, Joe wasn't, he's the one that left us, well, Joe Walton has a different story about it. He'd go out of Breckinridge County, he said, goodbye, United States. I
Well,
don't
do you
know.
remember Mr. Payne, that Anna Ray's daddy?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So you remember him. He was a school teacher too.
Yeah,
wasn't he?
they used to tell tales on him, I don't know whether it's true or not.
Yeah, about being absent-minded and stuff.
Bob, one question to everybody, did Jones ever work for Old Man Bill Powell that you know of, or, cause they,
Daddy did.
I don't think Jones ever, what they did, Zion's dad told me that they'd sell their tobacco there.
okay. He'd buy their tobacco.
And they had a store there.
Right.
And they
Yeah.
kinda operated that like the coal mines do the companies.
They had their home script, didn't they?
Yeah, they had their kind of their own script.
Did Jones build we talked about this last night a little bit nowadays, Jones built a church over at, was it Stone?
Duff.
Are there any other places that you know of, any buildings that he would have built around here?
No, not that I know of.
Is that church still there?
Yes.
Yeah. It
Is
was
it
a year
done?
or so ago.
Is
It's a
it
Methodist
used?
church. It's not being used.
No,
They
it's
closed it down a few years ago.
It's
It's a
a-
pretty white,
Like
country-looking
weatherboard.
church, you know.
Weatherboard.
Looks a lot like Westview Church.
Yeah.
And Grandpa Butler built it?
He and
Granddad
did. I didn't know
I've
that.
heard Mama say who helped him. Some man, they walked from Mook over there and would stay a week or 2 weeks at a time. And there was some veteran, a World War I veteran, that helped him. And he was addicted to morphine, and he would shoot himself with morphine of a morning, right through his overalls with a syringe, you know,
Yeah.
make it through the day. But they built that church over there, and it's still a pretty little white church.
I didn't know that.
Speaking of that, I'll tell you, Granddad, I always enjoy going out to their place. Granddad had, Gene remembers it, I don't know whether you all do, I had a big old bureau. Keith, I think, maybe remembers, Bob, Larry, maybe, I don't know whether you do or not. It's out there in the room where the little stove was at, I call it a little drum stove. He had knives in there. Of course, I was a little, it just fascinated me, and I used to see them knives, just play with them, I can remember that. And he had tools. Of course, he was a carpenter, had the sharpest tools anybody out there in an old shed. I remember going out there and doing that thing. It was, just impressed me, you
That's
know.
real tight. Uncle Wade kept their tools shining.
Oh, they did,
look
yeah.
like chrome.
They bet you, yeah, the
Them
shovel,
shovels,
you can see
they
yourself
shovel
in them.
point beds with?
You can see
Our
yourself in
shovels
them.
Good,
had
good.
mud
And work
rust
you to
on them.
death when they're doing it.
And her shovels were like chrome.
Come out there in the morning, he'd shave with a straight razor.
Yeah.
I save them some when I get up.
But he'd shave his
Shave
face.
razor.
A straight razor.
You know-
Had that leather, sharpened on the leather.
The only thing I can remember about him.
Who would do that?
I went out there.
Grandpa.
Grandpa.
I'd over there on the stove, be sitting in the corner behind the stove.
Your granddad?
Bob
Yeah.
stayed with them
That's
more
the only
than.
thing I remember about
They
him.
had, and then they kept, I don't know why they had, and I guess they had other stoves too, but, you know, we never was much in the kitchen a little bit, I was, good to kitchen a little bit once in a while, never did eat much out there.
Never
But
did eat it out
Did
there.
you? I don't know, Mama would.
Neither one of my grandmas, either side.
Well, no, my mom, Mom and Bessie, now she'd feed
He
us.
kept
but
red peppers behind one of them
Yeah,
stoves.
and Mama did that, they were
They had
hanging
a
up.
cellar there too, if you remember, you went down that
Yeah,
cellar.
yeah.
Yeah.
Outside.
Had canned goods in
Yeah.
there.
Canned goods
Canned
in
goods in
there,
there, yeah.
and apples.
And you said she was
They'd
afraid of
keep apples
storms.
in
Oh, yeah.
there, kinda like Jado would do with his cooler down there. And, it would, she always had said, now, get the apples with specks on them first.
Yeah.
You weren't allowed to eat a good apple.
But you know, I don't know why Bob did, Gene, did you ever stay out at Mama?
No.
I never did,
Why was
I'd go
Bob
out
the
there.
only
We
one?
never were there.
Well,
No,
our
I
mom probably
wasn't.
was
Gene,
better.
Bob was the only one that would stay. I don't know why he was the only one of us
Well,
that
you
would
said she
stay.
was afraid of storms.
I can remember being there.
Scared to death of a storm, worse than a dog,
But not
you know,
very
a dog gets
But I
scared.
didn't, Daddy was
There's
always
many times
both
there.
times. with you.
Scared to
There's
death.
many
If a storm come up, she would grab me, I was there, we'd run upstairs. Now, I'm not sure that's the right place to go. But that's where I went.
That's right.
Upstairs.
You know where the name Harned came from? I'd heard it's Henry
Yes.
Harned.
Yeah, I
I
do.
own a man's farm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right. I always heard it's over there. He lived over there.
See, it was originally just like the Harned Cemetery, it's a Scott cemetery. And the Harned came
Well,
in
is
and
there
gave
any,
grandpa.
Dale, have you ever seen a Scott monument up there?
They
No,
know.
but don't ask me, I've missed 2 of them up there.
He told us about
Scots
my
are
thing, he didn't know what to
ancestors.
start.
The Scots are ancestors of the Davises, I think.
Yes. But
Okay.
they was original, that was,
But I don't
then
remember
the
seeing
guy
the
named
Davis
Harned
or
donated
Scott.
the
Grace
ground.
Davis's maiden name.
Did he? The guy named Harned donated the
Call
ground.
You can drive.
Ask him what Miss
Yeah.
Grace Davis's
I'll
maiden name
All
is.
right.
What?
He owned my
Miss
farm.
Grace Davis's name, maiden name.
Miller.
Miller?
Bye-bye.
Okay, I was wrong.
Miller?
Miller from Hardinsburg.
Okay, I was wrong.
Down towards,
Dude, I'm tired of bored of this stuff.
Well, Larry was
Yeah,
it?
they
Well, now, wait a
Henry
minute.
Harned?
Huh?
Henry
They got
Harned?
enough
Yeah,
these
I can't think of what his
That's a
name
good
is.
thing about that.
First name was. But he
Well-
don't, he gave the right of way for the railroad.
Yeah.
He gave the right of way for the railroad and then
Then
he
they
sold
gave-
lots off.
Oh, okay.
I can't think of what his first name was.
Daddy,
I heard
He's
Henry.
in my chain
Henry,
of title on
Henry
the farm.
Harned is the guy
Henry?
from Virginia. He moved here after Civil
Virginia?
War. He
Yeah,
bought all the land. He donated
yeah.
it. So
But he gave the right of ways and said to the
Great
railroad.
railroad through there.
you know what it was
Yeah.
called before
Uh,
Harned?
Bob, Bruce, that, well, they wasn't kin to the
Layman.
Withers, she wasn't kin to the
Layman?
Withers?
Layman, Kentucky.
May have been.
I think she
Fred
was.
Layman
She was a
was-
Miller.
Well,
I don't know.
because Elizabeth Withers was
Oh,
not
she's kin to
white.
the sea now.
And they was some, but she was kin
No,
to
around-
Grace some way.
That's on the Davis side.
Okay.
The,
I knew it was something about
Carl
connection.
Yeah,
Forrest had a
that's right.
sister that married a Withers,
He owned a farm down there, Kirk.
Jimmy Withers.
Jimmy, yeah.
Well, Uncle Milt Davis owned up there where the graveyard is and all already. Did he, how much of that country did he own, Rick?
I don't know.
Okay, I asked this again, Uncle Milt Davis was nobody's uncle. in
Not mine, but that's what we called him.
Yeah,
That's what
Nobody-
Daddy called
Everybody
him.
called him.
that's what
And he
they all-
died in 1950, according to his gravestone. I don't remember.
My dad worked for him on the
For
farm.
Milton
Did
Davis?
you,
That's what
he
Jean
call him
told
Uncle
me, I
Milt?
didn't know that. She said on
Did you call him Uncle
Well,
Milt?
he died about a year after I was born, so I
Okay,
didn't-
so.
Hey, you
yeah.
don't
I don't
know.
have a
Died
personal relationship
1950.
with him.
Yeah.
That's like Uncle Frank Compton. We called Uncle Frank Compton Uncle Frank Compton.
Always
And
Uncle
Uncle Frank
Milton.
wasn't none of our uncles.
Carl Davis.
I always
Father.
heard them call, and that's where I was,
Uncle
I
Milton.
don't even know where I was born in Harnett though.
Okay.
Isn't that so?
I do.
So, all right, that's something
Do not
else.
know.
I don't know
So,
where I was born.
Yeah, you was born up
everybody
there.
go around the room and tell where you were born, because I'm interested to see this.
But Daddy worked for Lotus Lucas.
And I've got a question about Larry, if anybody can answer.
And then-
Brett, where were you born?
I was born in Hospital.
I was born
Up
in
there
an old
when-
hospital down there
After
where
you bought,
where they
when I
had
moved
one
down here,
of
didn't one of
Down.
them Lucas boys
Okay.
come in, or was John there with?
young John Kinslow.
He was there,
was
wasn't he? Come, yeah.
one that
Junior
brought me
Lucas,
into
is
the
it Junior?
world, but his dad brought my
Oh,
little
okay.
sister
I think I was born
Ted.
down there.
Charles
All
on.
right.
Where they
Donnie,
did
were
their
you
thing.
born the same place?
I was born in Hardinsburg Hospital.
Okay, the word it's now, or?
Old
No,
hospital.
No, the Ashland Station.
Okay, all right, same place.
I remember that.
John,
I was born in a little house
He's born-
in the corner. about TNT up there.
So you were born at home?
Yeah, that's what he told me. How about you, Bruce?
Same place.
Yeah.
You were born up there too?
I was born out on 259, part of it's still out there in a little house, and it blowed off the foundation, me laying on the bed, and Daddy said something about sometimes cyclone, he called it cyclone, his
That's
tornado
what
went
they
through
call
there.
them back there then.
Cyclone.
Where's that pole at? Where you going?
It's where, right across from Ben Wright's.
Gary Hicks.
Gary, right across
I'm
from
gonna
Gary
skip
Hicks.
Daddy called
Bird
it
because
string
he's the
town.
Spring
outlaw.
town.
Yeah.
String town.
That's what
Keith,
Daddy
where
always
were you
called it.
born?
That's what,
Strang
that's
town.
the string
Keith?
town.
Keith, where were you born?
Oh, there's Hornet and,
Flood's body shop there.
They're next to,
At the house.
well, they're
There was a house.
House down there, they live down
Same
there.
place.
Same place?
Okay, that's where you was born down
Okay.
there.
I remember when he was born.
My
I
foot's
heard
back there,
babies
that's where
crying.
Uncle Randy.
And 8 years
That's where all
ago.
the, they got a house there.
Bruce, you were born the same place?
That's where they-
Okay. Now,
There's-
Larry was
there's a
born
building
where?
there,
I was
that
born
house
in
is gone.
Louisville, St. Joseph
Harold
Does
Thompson
Hospital.
anybody
They
have
lived
any
there.
idea
That's
why
it.
he was born in Louisville?
Mom,
Well, Mom had problems, she was an RH negative, had RH negative blood, and she'd lost some babies, and I guess John Allen or somebody sent her to Louisville to have me. That's all I never did hear her
Makes
talk about it
sense. That was a
much.
trip.
And when he was born,
Didn't hear much
they,
about
they took
it.
me to Louisville.
they took him to
Daddy
Louisville
did.
to check his blood,
Him and
because
Aunt Jean
no
Wilson.
carb, the heater quit on.
They
They couldn't
Yeah.
even check your
Left Mom
blood
in
down
hospital.
here then, I don't guess, could
No,
they?
They
took
were
me
the
to
same way, it had
Louisville
it, cost me
for
$5
like-
back then, every time he stuck a hole, put in his foot. That was in
But they couldn't
67.
check your blood down.
No.
Now,
Maybe
Bob,
not.
Bob and them used to live beside of us down there at the old Garage Floods Body Shop. Bob come up there one day, they kept gasoline in glass Coca-Cola bottles to pour in the carburetor of a car and prime them with. Of course, that's just natural. Well, Bob got a hold of one of them once, and it was a knee-high bottle, and it did look like a cherry drink or
They
a
probably
peach
were,
drink.
knee-high, yeah.
Bob got a good swallow of that, but never done anything about it. I guess they just let you cough, give you a drink of water or
Oh, you
something,
done.
I ran around a few times.
till you run out of gas.
Bob, didn't you fall off a stack up there and break an arm?
I did, yeah.
I thought at the
I did.
garage, was you out in the junkyard, or where was that? Was
Yeah.
that above your house, or where?
Playing up there, playing around, just fell
Yeah.
on against the axle or something.
And the junkyard, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that, yeah.
Did the doctor come and set it, or did you have to go
I
somewhere?
went to the doctor. Took me to Hardensburg.
Gene, where were you born?
I don't know.
Hardy.
Harnett.
Harnett.
Yeah,
Going around here
He
somewhere.
was born at home, probably. wasn't he?
his home, yeah.
Yeah.
I kinda think it was down there when Daddy was, I think he worked for a lot of Slucas, and that was down around where the Gregory place
Yeah.
is now. Because Mom was always talking about, he had he'd been married before, and he had 2 girls, and then he had married again, I think, but these 2 girls was big enough that they'd come over and wanna hold me.
Was
when I
Lida
was a
Mae one
baby.
of them? Was Lida Mae Lucas one
Lida
of
Mae
them?
and Lena, and,
Lida
Lida
Mae.
Mae and, what's the other's name?
What was the other one's name? Lived in Arizona.
Yeah.
I think finally moved out
Lida
there.
Mae
didn't she?
and Leona, was it?
Maybe, I believe it was, but I don't
Lida
hold me
Mae
to
was the
this.
one was in the tobacco
Leona.
one, she.
You know,
tobacco.
I believe it right, I believe you're right.
It's
Dean.
not-
Did,
was.
did
Lila still-
Dr. Mathis is Dr. Matthews, but
Yeah.
did
Now, we-
Dr. Mathis actually go to medical school, or was he sort of like, the veterinarian,
Dr. John Conkright?
Dr. John?
Yeah,
Conrad?
No, I think
No,
he
he
No,
actually
not
went to-
Mathis,
because
but
Mama told me that Granddad and Dr. Matthews, they were first cousins.
Yeah,
And she said that Granddad aimed to go to medical school, but
Granddad,
couldn't
Phil
afford
Wilson.
the high school and all. They go through.
So Dr. Matthews did go to medical.
Yeah, he was,
now that was our doctor's
probably like a
office
good
too.
first aid course,
It was
but yeah.
across from,
the house is still there.
Mr. Goodman's restroom was,
Yeah,
and, well,
for
Burn
some reason,
Wilson's.
Matthews.
You get your medicine.
The house is still there.
You got your medicine there too, didn't you?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he
She
had a
goes
little
to the
office.
store. Yeah, the house is still there,
House is
Mr.
still
Dr.
there.
Matthews' house. There where that,
It's where the, you all probably know.
you all ought to know him, the one lives there now,
Where you
Bruce.
talking, Dr.
Ashley.
Matthews?
Yeah,
Yeah, who lives there now?
Oh,
Hopkins
Hodges.
or?
Hodges.
Hodges.
that's what, and then see the
And Doc's office was right beside
Side
of
of
it.
it.
Yeah.
On a
Yeah,
Hardsburg
there's a
side.
foundation was out there when I was.
Yeah.
Daddy used to go up there and get medicine from Annie
Annie would take
after
him
Doc
medicine.
died.
Yeah,
Gene
they had
put
great
out
big,
medicine.
apothecary jars, I guess you call them,
Yeah.
big things.
Gene,
But
when
yeah,
when
he
Dr.
get
Matthews
medicine.
passed away, I was big enough, but anyhow, I remember Jean and me, she took me over when Dr. Matthews was laying corpse. I remember that just
Do you
plain, I mean, I wasn't very big, I don't know
At
when
the
it
house?
was.
Dr.
Yeah,
Matthews couldn't drive.
no,
Yeah, I
He
was
couldn't
good.
go
He went to
anywhere.
medical school, but he couldn't drive.
Right.
He couldn't drive, didn't have a driver's license. Fred Davis drove him around, and if you called out there for him, it depended on whether Fred was sober or not. As to whether
I didn't remember that, I didn't remember that, I hadn't heard that one. I hadn't heard that.
That's great.
I just thought he.
Did you have to
wanted
get
somebody
sick
to
before a
drive.
certain time?
And there's a good chance
in the
Fred
day?
wouldn't be sober.
Joe
Who
Anderson
was
drive for
Fred
him,
Davis?
Huh?
Joe
deceased,
Anderson.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah, got
good.
that, yeah, Joe, yeah. But Daddy also drove Mr. Ganaway, had a candy distributorship out of that same area, if I'm not mistaken, and delivered it around to stores in the county.
Oh,
Yeah, Dad drove
Ganaway.
him some.
Ganaway was his name. I don't remember,
I've heard
I
tell
heard
about
Daddy
delivery.
tell about that. And I don't know what, but that's what he drove for him.
When, I got my license, or was getting my license, me and Uncle Wade got our license about the same time.
Yeah.
And, I remember asking Daddy, I said, Daddy, how old were you when you got your license? He said, I don't rightly know, son. He said, it cost 50 cents. And I said, okay, and I went on a few minutes, I said, how old were you? He said, son, they cost 50 cents. And that was a big deal, and I think this guy helped him get them or bought them for him, is
Yeah.
what I
The
think the
Ganaway?
story
Yeah,
was. The
Ganaway,
guy he
yeah.
drove for somewhere.
Yeah.
I didn't know Ganaway.
So would you have taken a test back then, or you?
I
just-
bet
I think
not.
it was cost 50 cents.
Cost 50 cents, it cost 50 cents.
I
They
really
just
don't
wanted
know.
money.
That picture down here, John. Yeah. It shows him.
There's no
Did you see
happiness
that?
allowed, so.
Oh,
Brett
this is
said.
a picture.
Brett, by the way,
Look, Brett
where were
said.
you born, Brett?
I was born in the old, hospital.
Hospital.
Down there in Holland,
You know, another story, I didn't know about this till a few years ago, or several years ago. When Mom and Dad got married, Dad was, what, 17 years older
Yeah.
Yeah.
than her. And that was a bit of a scandal, you know,
Yeah,
that
oh, yeah.
day. And
How old was?
they
was
ran
she?
off and got married. He was
36,
39.
19.
So
Or
she's
about
22.
39, she was 22, I think, something
Yeah.
like that. And they ran off to Rockport, where they got married over there in Indiana or somewhere. I believe it's
Never
Rockport,
heard that
Indiana.
conversation.
You could add a little marriage thing over there. Morris Alexander and his wife, Juanita, went with them, stood up with them. They didn't tell anybody they got married when they got back here. Morris swore to secrecy. That went on for about a month. They were still pretending they were dating and all that. And finally, my Aunt Margaret, the Dawson,
Yeah.
told her, if you don't tell Mama, I'm going to. So they had to have a family meeting and got that all
I
cleared
didn't
out.
know that, yeah.
How come they didn't want anybody to know?
I don't,
Well, they just
because my grandmother was having a fit over him going with her.
Yeah, she didn't want
She
him
didn't, she
married.
didn't marry,
They didn't
no,
want to
huh?
get married.
Well, your dad's youngest son had the same problem because, his father-in-law didn't want him married. Isn't that true?
Pretty much.
Pretty much. Yeah.
Goes to family then, I guess.
Say, y'all got any family down there in Dawson's left?
No.
Are they all, what about, you ain't got any kinfolk in Ohio now, any?
We got a cousin in Ohio.
Got a cousin in Ohio.
That's the only one left
One
on that.
cut, yeah. got
On
one
your
cousin
mom's
in
side.
And then,
Dayton, Ohio.
and then Dale, or Gerald had, what,
This
two
is right
girls?
there.
Gerald had
right
two
there is
girls.
the window
Still
from
live,
the
Gerald, he's dead, but,
What about Leonard Ray's kids? Where are they now?
They are,
Bloomington and Seymour,
Bloomington, yeah,
or not
I think
Seymour,
it's the back wall of the living room.
Closer.
Columbia, Columbus, Indiana, Columbus,
Bloomington's where he was at, where he lived,
She's
is
an
it?
elementary principal.
Bloomington's where he
Elementary
lived.
principal.
She's still a principal?
Bloomington's where,
Bloomington.
Good,
where
Shelley.
Nathan lives.
Good for her.
Oh, Shelley.
Leonard Ray did too, didn't he?
Yeah.
Well, she would probably be getting close to going home, I guess, wouldn't she?
She is, she probably is close. She worked a pretty good while.
Well, is Nathan still in the undertaking business?
Yeah, I think so.
Phew.
I haven't heard from him for a long time.
Yeah.
Well, will Shelley come here, or she stay up where she is after
She
she
stays
leaves?
where she is, yeah.
Yeah. They, but I don't know anything, I already some other things I already know, but I've enjoyed it. I don't know about you all. I really enjoyed this time. I think it's a great thing.
I got one more.
We can uncover a lot more stuff too.
Let me tell one more story.
One more Butler story. My grandmother told me, and I asked Pete this one time, and Pete wouldn't say a lot, but he agreed. But my grandmother told me that the way they survived, they always had a big garden, and back then they had root cellars, which you
Yeah.
guys probably, because I remember us having a root cellar as a kid. And they'd raise a big garden, they'd always kill an animal, and they made their own clothes. And she said that the tobacco paid the property taxes. And I asked Pete, and Pete said that's about right.
Yeah. That's the way, yeah.
They had it pretty tough.
But you know, they wasn't the only one, that was the way the people back then, that's the way they lived. I mean, they didn't have these day jobs
Well,
they got
didn't
work
your
to.
dad say one time that he never knew that?
I asked him, I said, how did you stand it back during the Depression, just not being able to get a hold of any money and have anything? He said, well, he said the neighbors were in the same shape.
Right.
So he said, we didn't realize
Nobody
how
had
bad it was.
Nobody
You know,
had.
Okay, along those lines, I have heard of my grandfather eating radishes and gravy.
Oh, yes, good.
And I have asked
Thousands
tons
of
of
people.
people about radishes and gravy, and they look at me like I've got a third eye. Did any of your all's parents ever eat that?
Daddy liked it.
No.
I like it.
Daddy liked it.
I like it.
I saw him eat it, that's what made me start.
I like
But
it.
if you make good thickening gravy, you can put it on about
Radishes and
anything.
Yeah, put it on the table and
But
make
try
it
it
good.
sometime, boys, when you got nothing else to do. Chop you up some radishes and just put some white
White milk
thickening
gravy on it.
gravy.
It's good.
You'll like it.
It's good.
Not until I have to.
Am I the only butler that doesn't like sorghum? Because my
Yeah,
dad,
yeah.
your dad loved
You
it.
don't like sorghum? Oh, I
want
like
to,
sorghum.
I don't
I
like
wanna
it.
like it, I don't.
Larry
My dad
Brody
loved-
made some.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
I
pretty
know.
good.
I
I
yeah,
got
we
some.
got
But
some.
didn't your
Gives
dad
me
say one time
heartburn
something
every
about
spot anymore.
he
He brought
loved
me some
sorghum?
too, yeah.
Huh?
Didn't your dad say something about loving sorghum?
Love sorghum.
loves
Said
sorghum.
Never had anything go down his throat that tasted any better than ham meat.
Yeah.
He liked country ham.
Cut your hand.
He,
I got an Uncle Wade story about the tournament. So we were at the sale barn on a Saturday night. I think I was 7 or 8 or something. Uncle Wade had bought that Ranger, brand new Ranger, like 77.
76,
Blue and white,
7, yeah,
I think.
whatever.
He was sitting on his
73,
tailgate. And he was
Three
sitting
or
there,
four, say three or four.
he was carving a raw turnip and just he was eating it like an apple.
Yeah.
Yeah, he that raw turnip. Come on.
Yeah, I said, what's it taste like? He said, well, here.
Well, here, yeah,
Little
no
bite.
more, huh?
I like it
all
like that,
turnips,
yeah.
didn't he?
Yeah, he
Oh, yeah.
always raised
He always
They
turnip.
raised turbans, always raised
When
turbans.
he got his license in his truck, then he could leave.
Oh, Mom.
Before then, he was stuck
Tight.
up tightness all day, but
Yeah.
then we got ready to go, he'd go.
Yeah,
He was mobile.
Yeah.
J.B. Thurman taught him to drive. Had him go out
Down
there.
around Glendale, wasn't
Yeah.
He used to talk out loud in church with you, didn't he?
Oh, they had a conversation.
he? Down there big time.
Speaking, I got an Uncle Wade story
He talked
also.
during prayer. So that's when
Gene knows it.
He
Boys
talked
may.
during prayer. He'd look up, how you doing? You get comfortable. That was prayer. Everybody heard
But
it.
he put your cane.
He put his cane behind me. I mean, sit out like that.
I'll tell you another better than that. Where he said it was the second pew from the back. That was his pew. And I've seen him walk up, somebody be sitting there, I've seen him walk up and stand there and stare at him till he moved. That was his-
Yeah, I remember that.
You remember that?
Yeah, yeah.
You know, he loved his family.
Oh, yeah.
And his family loved him.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
They all were really good to him, I think.
Yeah.
Dad and Uncle Raymond, Uncle
Daddy
all
called
of
him every night.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they
Daddy
were
did.
good to
When he
him.
took,
They felt
till he
sorry
took the
for him.
phone.
They were good to their parents too.
Yeah.
Uncle Wade took
The
the
phone
When did
bill
they
went to,
stop,
what was it,
speaking of
$7?
He got rid
When
of
did
it.
It went seven
you
something,
get
wasn't
to
that
dial
right?
756? I can get
It
to dial
went
It got
756.
bad, it got high.
If you were in California, you could dial 6 in the last 4, when did that stop?
He was going for
In
that
the-
driveway,
in the-
right over.
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah.
When the
Maybe
city,
they
He
all
wouldn't,
go.
he wouldn't answer the
Had the
phone if
phone
you called him
so
if he
they
didn't
could
get in the
talk. I
first
don't know.
ring or two.
While we're
Because he thought it cost
all
more.
video,
If it rung, he wouldn't answer. If it
I
rung
wanna
over
give,
two
I
other
wanna
times,
give
he wouldn't
Gene,
answer.
I wanna give Gene the
Yeah.
ultimate
Oh, yeah.
compliment.
What?
My dad made a comment, and Larry stole it, but that all the butlers were peculiar except for him and Wade. And we're all talking one time on if there's any butler that's not peculiar. And you're the only one we could come up with.
yeah,
way.
that's right.
Yeah.
No, thank you.
Well, that's the ultimate
Thank you,
compliment.
thanks.
And see, but like I said a while ago, that I really appreciate. I know we haven't, maybe the boys haven't learned a lot, but I've enjoyed just being with you all, visiting
Well,
with
no,
you.
Bill knows.
It's something, you know, that-
Oh,
and us older ones.
You got a birthday coming up, don't you?
But
I
Gene
done had one.
Earl-
Done
You
had
know,
one.
it's easy to talk about it, but we really need to have another reunion.
Yeah,
We had that last one in 2001.
that's how long ago? 20 years ago?
20 years.
I'm ready when you wanna do
I probably
it.
better have it for 20 more. I don't.
Yeah, I don't, being Gene and I may not, you may not make it 20 more years.
20 more if I'm-
We've been close.
I won't even be able to
We need to try to
bring
work
me.
on that.
But
Maybe
he's
somebody
gonna
like Dale's an organizer, maybe he can help us with that.
Well,
There's so many of us around now, we
Gene,
don't
I
do
appreciate
anything.
you all giving up your
I had a lot.
I
It's my last day, sir.
It has been,
Did somebody, did
It's been
somebody?
I tell you what, I'd take money and come
But
in.
then it
That's what happened,
It's a great
I
show.
really enjoy
Well,
I put in
it.
Kevin has told me
My contract ran
about
out next
Harnett
April.
being layman before
And I
it
didn't
became
want to
Harnett,
Christmas.
so I.
Yeah, he
And
found,
last
I
year's
forget
been
where
tough.
he found that.
I'm
But
glad
then
some of
you
you all
old
got
people
girls
know who's
coming
going
along
to
now
fall
too, 'cause
for
here I am, I'm
You're the only girl of all of us that's in Brazos County. There was 4 that was in Illinois, right?
They owned it ever since I
Was
could.
there 4 of them in
I'm talking about
Illinois?
it wasn't
Girls?
hard.
No, I'm Lansing, I don't know,
Our
she was,
first
I don't know.
cousins, like,
Oh,
they were
first
4 girls
cousins,
in
yeah.
Illinois or 3.
Thank you all.
First
Nor
cousin
Ethel,
of girls
a girl.
that are living, that are.
No, just that Bessie had, did she have
Oh,
4?
yeah, Aunt Bessie, she had
I'm not
four.
done.
Doris,
I did that in law
Margaret,
school, I have no.
and Nora Ethel, and,
Yeah, I go down to law,
Was another
having
one?
the,
I'm asking, I don't know.
let's see, Margaret, and
Doris,
Doris.
Nor Ethel,
She had one
that's
that
only
died,
3.
I think.
yeah, I did a whole lot.
We never knew that.
Surely I went over.
So-
Then
That's what they
I
do
guess
now.
Joe
You're the-
and Lloyd.
I took a lot of those out of there too.
I guess they did that. She
you're
had
the
5
only one.
kids. Aunt
I'm
Bessie
6.
had fruits.
There's Lloyd
Aunt Bessie had,
and Joe.
Aunt Bessie had 5 kids or 6.
Who, here, I think, Doris and Joe and Margaret and Lloyd.
Nora Ethel.
Nor Ethel.
Just Nor Ethel, yeah. We
That's
got,
all we
there's
could
4
count.
girls
We
following.
thought-
You know Bob,
Margaret,
you know
Nor
Joe's
Ethel.
wife died about a week ago?
What was the one that was sick for so long?
Her name was Pam.
She was a nice lady.
And 2 boys.
Joe was a
There's
nice
3 girls and 2 boys, right, Gene?
Yes, he was. And I always thought Lloyd looked like a,
Yeah, they acted like, and he said, I'll tell you, speaking of that, y'all never done it, but when Uncle Tank was alive and Daddy was sitting in church, if you looked in the back of their head, you couldn't
I'm
see
always
it.
tall, one of them.
And it was built about like that. I wish Dwight could visit, I invited him, and he said he's gonna probably come, but he didn't, but I've enjoyed it.
Yeah, he's strong. Oh,
I told Dave.
But what you think is, very brush Us 2 guys can do it. One of them's pretty good. I think we can get on that. It's all gone, it's about all gone.
Wade got divorced.
Well, yeah, but that was necessary. Daddy didn't pay that off.
Mom's got one.
They got that, they had to chip in
I'm
there.
over here seeing you all, just take it on and have family.
Daddy always said, this right here is best.
You really do. Well, I've already got balls, that's not gonna last. You know, I'm the only person here trying to get them to come up with it. The rest of us wear wigs. That is something, I'm on, there's really some.
We didn't tell what we need to do.
More than I do.
They got boobies. That's just Dale. Dale. That was the table during the table.
They're stacked up.
They stacked up. Yeah, just pull them over and just leave them.